versus Ravens preview coverage for you coming up today. In just a moment, we'll lead things off with the biggest matchups in Chiefs versus Ravens. What are the most critical matchups that are going to define this Sunday afternoon's AFC Championship game? We will get to that. We are going to break down the Chiefs' approach to slowing down Baltimore's running game. Plus, is the running game itself the most terrifying part? Maybe terrifying is a strong word, but the most concerning part of the Ravens offense? Or is it the fact that their wide receiver core, while not good, or while not great, is good, and they've got one player who I think is on the cusp of being a star in the NFL, and Zay Flowers, and they might get their best tight end back, their best pass catcher overall, Mark Andrews. Does that make the tight end room the most concerning part of that offense? We'll break that all down coming up in the 4 o'clock hour today. We're going to hear from Andy Reid. We're going to hear from Patrick Mahomes, and we will also hear from a couple other Chiefs players coming up in the 5 o'clock hour today. We'll hear from Reid this hour. Mahomes coming up in the 3 o'clock hour today. Some college basketball to get to as well. K-State will be in action tonight, a game you'll be able to catch right here on 580 WIBW and FM 104.9. So we'll talk about that game coming up in the 2 o'clock hour, and Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com is going to join us coming up at the bottom of the 4 o'clock hour today. 580 Sports Talk headlines are what is wrong with you for the day, and we'll play some One Gotta Go as well. All that and more coming up today on 580 Sports Talk. We would love for you, as always, to be a part of the program. You know how to find us. 785-272-9429 is the text line number, and you can also find us on YouTube. 580 Sports Talk on YouTube is the name of our channel. Go check it out. Subscribe if you haven't already. See today's live show. Find all of our old archived shows as well. The instant reaction videos to the Chiefs, KU home games, K-State home games, Washburn games. All those can be found on our YouTube channel as well. We've got a ton of Chiefs football to get to today, so why don't we just jump right on in to our first topic of the day. And Dan, I think this was a really interesting way to look at this matchup that you came up with. The matchups that will define Chiefs versus Ravens coming up on Sunday. So offense, defense, individual versus individual, position group versus position group, maybe coach versus coach could be factored in here as well. So I will let you go first. What is your number one most definitive, will tell us all we need to know about this game matchup coming up Sunday?
I think that, like you said, you had a lot of different ways to answer that question. But the matchup I've got my eye on right now, given the uncertainty around Joe Thuney's availability for Sunday, and we'll hear from Andy Reid later on. He'll talk a little bit about that. Adam Schefter reported on Twitter earlier today that it's not looking great for Thuney for Sunday, that he's going to try hard to get game ready. But the Chiefs are probably right now of the mind that getting Thuney back would be nice, but they are going to give Nick Allegretti the first team reps this week. And he's going to, I think it is probably more likely Allegretti than Thuney that will start at left guard in this AFC Championship game. So it'll be him, Creed Humphrey, and Trey Smith on the interior. Smith didn't practice today either, but he's sick because everybody in the league has been getting sick this year.
It's also just Chiefs tradition at this point.
Yeah, somebody gets sick every game week, it feels like, for the Chiefs. So that's your interior for the Chiefs, and they've been terrific all season. We've talked about it. They've been consistently solid. They have helped to set the tone for the Chiefs' ground game, creating holes, pulling in run plays to the outside. Creed Humphrey did a ton of that on Sunday in Buffalo to help Isaiah Pacheco get loose and give that balance to this Chiefs offense. But the other thing that they've done is they've been so good in pass protection. Thuney especially, I think he's the best pass protecting left guard in the NFL. And I'm not saying that as somebody who eats a lot of left guard tape. Like, I'm not out there watching every left guard and grading them. I don't work for PFF, but I have a hard time believing there's a better pass blocking left tackle in the NFL than Joe Thuney. If Nick Allegretti's in there on Sunday, that's probably a little bit of a step down. But this group all year has been really good at pass blocking and keeping pressure out of Patrick Mahomes' face. Well, now they got to deal with Justin Madubuike, and I think he's the best interior pass rusher that the Chiefs have faced this year. Like Quinnen Williams of the Jets is really good. I'm trying to think, like the Broncos, Ravens, Chargers really don't have, or Raiders, Chargers really don't have that kind of presence. Bills have Ed Oliver, kind of a non-factor really, in the pass rush in both meetings this year. Philadelphia has Fletcher Cox, like a great all-around player, but not like an elite pass rusher, particularly.
Also old.
Yeah, particularly at this stage of his career. They haven't faced a guy like Matabike playing at the level that Matabike has played at this year. Him, Michael Pierce, and Travis Jones are the guys that are going to get those interior snaps. But Matabike is the best interior pass rusher they faced all season, and they have to go up against him in all likelihood without their all-pro left guard at this point. That's the matchup. You've got to keep the pressure out of Mahomes' face, and you've got to be able to get enough push up front on rushing downs so that you're still able to win those first downs. Have that success rate stay ahead of the chains on first downs. Those two factors are going to be significant on Sunday, and that starts with that middle three of the Chiefs line against Matabike and company.
Well, I told you when the all-pro teams came out, what was it, about 12 days ago, 2 weeks ago now, I thought you could flip the interior linemen on the second team and the first team all-pro and you would have gotten it right. Like, I think Justin Matabike might have been the best interior lineman pass rusher in the entire NFL this season for sure. I thought Dexter Lawrence had a great year, whereas the first team guys this season, Aaron Donald and Chris Jones, were good, but I think Matabike had a better year than either of them. It is hard to get to double-digit sacks as an interior lineman, and especially when you've got a bunch of other dudes who can get after the quarterback as well out there on that defense. And I think Mike McDonald is an unbelievable defensive coordinator, to be completely honest with you, and he has found something that has really unlocked what it looked like when he was coming out of the draft he could be and what he now is. And Michael Pierce has been a nice player for a long time. And Travis Jones is a guy who came out of UConn a couple years back in the draft, who I really liked. I thought even with a weird schedule and with not a very good set of teammates around him talent-wise, I thought he really flashed as an interior defensive lineman. So I like that group for Baltimore a lot. If you don't have Tooney in this matchup, suddenly that makes, I think, Nick Allegretti the most important player on the field for the Chiefs, because you're lined up with Donovan Smith, who is not, an elite left tackle by any means. And he's not bad, but it's not like, hey, I've got this extra security blanket off my left shoulder because I've got this all-pro next to me. Creed Humphrey is an all-pro caliber player who's on your right shoulder at center. But that suddenly makes your backup offensive lineman maybe the most important player on the field. And I know that Andy Reid said everybody here treats him like he's a starter, but I have to imagine you go up against a team like Baltimore with that many dudes on the inside. If you slip up even a little bit, they're going to take advantage of you. So I'm in agreement with Dan here. I think you've got to limit those guys as much as possible, because every quarterback in the league, if you asked him, would you rather face edge pressure or pressure up the middle, Patrick Mahomes included, everyone would say, I don't want to face interior pressure.
Yeah, and then you get to the next level of their defense. And I think if just looking at the guys in the linebacking core for the Ravens, they're some of the most recognizable names in the league when it comes to all, the top three positions, when you got Roquan Smith, Patrick Queen, and Kyle Van Noy. So I think that's going to be a factor too in pass coverage, because they're, I believe Smith and Queen are ranked highly in pass coverage according to PFF.
And that's exactly where my matchup was for this game. I was looking at the linebackers for Baltimore, but you usually think, okay, linebackers on tight ends and running backs. I'm going to go a little bit differently here. My 1-to-1 matchup is Patrick Mahomes versus those inside linebackers for Baltimore. And I know why that sounds weird, but when you look at where Mahomes and this Chiefs offense have found their most success passing the ball this season, and when you look at what those two do, Smith and Queen, so effectively for Baltimore, I think it makes this a fascinating matchup. Patrick Mahomes in short and then intermediate to intermediate long passing in the middle of the field this year, dominant, like 112, 115 plus passer rating in that middle third of the field until you get to throws of 20 plus yards where he wasn't great over the course of the season. That is also a place that is going to be patrolled by Roquan Smith and by Patrick Queen. Smith this season was the number 2 graded coverage linebacker in the NFL, according to Pro Football Focus. He was also listed as the 4th best in terms of forced incompletions. So that, bumping a receiver off a route, knocking a pass away, getting in the way somehow, things like that. Again, they break down every single piece of film. They go player by player, game by game, snap by snap, and they find all of these things. That's how they come up with those grades, which are not flawless, but if you're number one in all these categories, or you're near number one in all these categories, pretty safe to say you're a major impact player. So we know that Roquan Smith has been that good in coverage this year. And Smith has helped take Patrick Queen to another level. Because if you remember, before the Bears traded Smith to the Ravens middle of last year at the deadline, Patrick Queen was a bust. He was awesome at LSU, one of the best players on that LSU defense, maybe the greatest college football team of all time in 2019. But then he got to the pros and he was not good. I don't know if it was they were asking him to do things he wasn't ready to do. I'm not sure what it was, but he was not good. Roquan Smith showed up. Queen takes on a little bit of a different role with Smith clearly being their number one linebacker option. And suddenly Queen is good, legitimately good. And Roquan Smith, did he end up making first team All-Pro this year? He should have if he didn't.
Don't know that.
He did. Okay, yeah, he did. And then Patrick Queen, I don't remember if he ended up making second team. He did. Yeah, so there you go. That's how well those two have played over the course of the year. The other thing they do, though, other than coverage, and the reason why it's quarterback versus linebacker for the coverage there, is they're going to be between the hashes. They're going to be in the box. They are going to be in that middle third of the field that Mahomes has had so much success targeting over the course of the season. So that means throws to Travis Kelce. That means your stuff over the middle to Rashee Rice. That means your work to the running backs in the passing game. That is going to be that much tougher with two good and one truly great coverage linebacker there. That's going to make things a little bit more difficult. You're going to have to probably try to throw over the top a little bit more, use the sidelines more. And it's not that Mahomes has only been good throwing over the middle. I'm not trying to indicate that, but you're going to end up possibly having to try to avoid them a little bit. The other thing, though, the Ravens run and if you're really into football strategy and scheme, you've probably heard this phrase used more and more over the last couple of years, simulated pressure and traditionally it's like, oh, it looks like they're going to blitz. Oh, and they're bluffing out of it. It's a little bit more complex than that. And Baltimore runs this stuff as much or more than any team in the NFL. And so much of it is predicated on what Smith and Queen are doing. And sometimes it actually is bringing them while they drop out defensive linemen. Sometimes it looks like they're blitzing them off the edge or from the interior, and then they drop out. Sometimes they will approach on the snap, not actually even get to the line of scrimmage like it looks like they're going to blitz, but just the alignment they bring, it adds extra pressure on certain parts of the offensive line. So that's okay. Well, then it's the linebackers versus the line, right? No, wrong. I'm still saying it's Patrick Mahomes who's the person in conflict here for the Chiefs because those simulated pressures, they can spook a quarterback. Everyone made fun of Sam Darnold when he said he was seeing ghosts on Monday Night Football that one time, but that's a real thing. That's what this entire simulated pressure thing is trying to generate for quarterbacks. Make them confused. Make them not know where the pressure is coming from. Make them not know, okay, two guys are coming down. Is it both of them? Is it just one of them? Which one of it is them? Are they both going to drop out? Those are the kinds of things that Baltimore tries to do. They want to confuse you as much as possible. That's what these linebackers do. So I think sometimes it'll be in pressure. Sometimes it'll be dropping out of pressure. Sometimes it'll just be straight coverage. But those are two of the best linebackers in the NFL. And I think that's going to make things difficult for Patrick Mahomes. Because if you told any quarterback in the league, you're good going over the middle, but you've got two brick walls there over the middle, you've got to find a way to adjust.
Well, and added to this, good sign if you're the Ravens, Marlon Humphrey returned to practice today.
I saw that, and I find that interesting. And, I mean, obviously, if you're Marlon Humphrey and you're the Ravens, you want your best cornerback out there. But it does make you wonder, to this point that I'm trying to bring up here, is if you know you might need to work the outside a little bit more, and Baltimore's got its best cornerback back, worst tweeter, but best cornerback back, that is going to make things a lot more difficult for this offense. And I'm interested to see what the chess match looks like between Mike McDonald's offense, or defense, which, based on how I'm presenting it here, I feel like is going to be the aggressor. How can the Chiefs then counter that? How can the Chiefs use that Ravens scheme against them? So I'm interested in that. I'm interested to see what the Chiefs' answer for those defensive looks are.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you. And then, when you move to offense, I mean, you might get Mark Andrews back.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, they could get two of their top players back respectively on their side, on the sides of the ball, because they didn't have them last week.
Mm-hmm.
And they still played really, really well, and their defense shut down the Texans in the second half.
Yeah, and that we'll get to the specific parts of the Ravens offense a little bit later on in the show. But is there one part of that offense to sort of tease that a little bit. Is there one thing, well, let's assume Andrews plays, because it sounds like that is indeed going to happen. Is there some part of the Chiefs defense, knowing that with Andrews out there, they've got a vertical threat, they've got an intermediate threat, and it's going to open up it's going to draw attention away from Isaiah Likely, the other tight end, a little bit from the running game, from those other wide receivers. Is there some part of this Chiefs defense, you think, Spencer, that has put in more conflict if Mark Andrews is able to come back?
Yeah, I mean, I think it also depends on injury and concussion protocol. Mike Edwards. I mean, a secondary member could potentially be out for them. And obviously, Mark Andrews, when he plays, he's one of the top tight ends in the league. So that could have, you lose a matchup potentially, whether if you're going to put Justin Reid on a Mark Andrews, but then you lose another top safety to be there in his position.
I think, too, if Edwards can't go and you end up with the rotation of Deion Bush or more Shamari Connor, while you trust Connor, and he's been pretty good so far this year, and while you trust Deion Bush, he's mostly a special teamer, but he's been a decent defensive player over the course of his career, that makes things a lot more challenging for that group. And I think that is one of the big areas in which, I mean, there's many reasons why the Ravens are better than the Bills. But that's one of the things that makes the Ravens a more difficult guard. Because for Buffalo, the fact that Stephon Diggs was playing terribly, that obviously aided the Chiefs. But they just don't have that many weapons. Like, we talked about the tight ends going into that matchup last Sunday, right? And Knox and Kincaid, yes, those guys are dangerous. But outside of that, I mean, who is concerning you in that part of the field? Baltimore legitimately has 5 guys that come to mind, 4 especially, 2 receivers and 2 tight ends, who you say, yeah, those safeties have to be good. Those coverage guys have to be really good to try to slow things down. I love watching Mark Andrews play. I think he is somehow almost underrated, even though we've all known for several years that he's been the best pass catcher that Baltimore has. So I'm interested to see him out there. I like watching him play. For the sake of good football, I hope he is able to go this weekend. I'm curious to see, though, what that means for this Chiefs defense. All these things together, the number one takeaway from these matchups, though, is it's always decided in the trenches. And this game is going to be largely decided by, are the Chiefs able to generate any sort of pressure against Lamar Jackson? We haven't really talked about Baltimore's offensive line, which is good. I don't know that it's an elite group, but it's a good group. Are they able to generate any sort of pressure? And can they get into their run fits? Can they end up finding a way to scheme shut some of those open running lanes that Baltimore seems to always have? And on the flip side of that, it again, to me, comes down to Nick Allegretti. I'm assuming he is going to go at left guard. If Joe Thuney is able to play, it will be a pleasant surprise. Until then, I'm going to assume it's going to be Nick Allegretti. What can the Chiefs do to minimize the drop-off from Joe Thuney to Nick Allegretti? And Allegretti is a fine player. He has been a fine player for years. But Joe Thuney is an all-pro. If you wanted to tell me Joe Thuney is the best left guard in all of football, Dan said a little bit ago, best pass protecting left guard. If you want to give me best left guard, period, in the NFL, I would agree. I would say, yes, I do believe Joe Thuney earns that crown and deserves that crown right now. What can you do to mitigate the drop-off? Not that Allegretti's awful, but you're clearly going to take a step back without Thuney in there. How do the Chiefs counter that? We'll talk more about some of these specific matchups coming up a little bit later on in the show. Later on this hour, we'll hear from Andy Reid. But first, K-State versus Iowa State tonight. K-State, if they can win on the road at Hilton Coliseum, what does that say about this K-State program? We'll get to that coming up next here on 580 Sports Talk.
Big deal in
started on this Wednesday edition of 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzinski, Dan Lucero, Spencer Dupuis here with you. Thanks so much for hanging out with us on this Wednesday, January 24th. We'll hear from Andy Reid coming up here in a few minutes. First things first, though, K-State is in action tonight. Tough matchup, always is, going on the road to Hilton Coliseum, taking on Iowa State. If K-State can win this game, and I think K-State has played a fairly easy Big 12 schedule so far. Nothing is easy in the Big 12, and they've got to win over Baylor, which is a big deal. They've also played some of the lesser teams in the league so far. If they can beat Iowa State on the road, and is Iowa State as good as their record or ranking would indicate? I would say no so far. I know they've got some good pieces, but am I going to ever believe in TJ Otzelberger long term? No, I'm not. But that's a tough place to play. That's a good team. That's a tournament team, regardless, I think.
It's an extremely tough place to play. Like outside.
Yeah, I don't want to undersell it.
When they're going good, that's probably the second toughest place in the conference to play outside Allen Fieldhouse. Like when students are in session and like Iowa State is playing well, I think everyone's playing for second in the Big 12 because of what Allen Fieldhouse is and has always been. But I put Hilton Coliseum second. I really do. I think it's the second toughest. It's them, and if you want to argue for the USA and Lubbock, sure. You want to argue for Bramlage?
If you're Texas, yeah, the USA is tough.
Yeah. You want to argue for Bramlage at its loudest? Sure. I'd listen to that argument too. But for me, it's probably Hilton and then those two as far as the best. And with a full house.
What does that say about this Kansas State program if they can win tonight?
It says that I think there is a broad consensus nationally that people are still not sold on these Wildcats, still not sold on their credentials as an NCAA tournament team. I think they're one of the last four in for Lenardi in his most recent bracketology. And look, you don't have to care about bracketology, just public service announcement. You don't have to care about that stuff. Like, it doesn't matter until they actually release the brackets. Like, the closer you get to that, the more accurate those projections get. But bracketology in mid-January is utterly useless. It doesn't matter even one bit. But it is indicative, though, of how teams are perceived. And right now, the perception of Kansas State is that they are a borderline NCAA tournament team, which is to say it could go either way for them. They want to take a firm step towards no doubt about it, no sweat selection Sunday. Winning this game would be a big step in that direction. I think it would prove to the swath of college basketball media that maybe hasn't watched them or maybe isn't sold that, no, maybe there's not a lot of star power here. Maybe they don't have two All-Americans like they did last year, but it's still a damn good basketball team.
Clearly, ESPN analytics not sold on. They only give them 7.9% chance to win tonight.
Really? The BPI?
Yeah, whatever the matchup predictor is, it's a 7.9%.
That like seems wrong.
It does. Like when I was like, that seems wrong. I would maybe think it was like a 30-40 ish.
And I know that K-State is not, an analytical darling this year, right? What are they ranking, Ken Palm? 57. That's an improvement. Like, that's behind Butler and Seton Hall and Princeton. Princeton's good this year, but that's below like good mid-majors. I'm higher apparently on this K-State team than many. I thought this could be a tournament team. I was thinking like an 8 or a 9 seed. I don't know. Predicting them to be fairly like just into the tournament is a little low for me. For reference, where would you like, based on your own personal projection of what the rest of the season will look like, where would you put K-State right now? Like, firmly on the bubble, firmly in, but maybe not a great seed? Like, your own personal projection.
I thought going into Big 12 play that they felt like a team that would make the tournament as a team that would maybe avoid Dayton, but be like a 10. Like they felt like a double-digit type seed to me. They felt like a 10, maybe a 9. And I guess I still feel that way because I'm still ahead of the consensus, right? The consensus is still, last 4 in or first 4 out with a lot of the major bracketologists out there. But I think that their schedule is going to get a lot tougher starting tonight. And I don't think they're going to, like 4-1 through 5 games. That puts them roughly on pace to win 12 to 13 conference games. I think they're going to struggle to get there because I think 13 probably wins the league. I think 12, I think there's a chance that there's a 4-way tie for 12-6 that wins this league. So to say that I see K-State as a team that maybe maxes out at 10 conference wins, that's not a knock. That's just how good this league is.
Yeah.
But 10 conference wins gets them to 20. If they're 20-10, 20-11, 21-10 going into Selection Sunday, that's probably an 8, 9, 10 seed. And that to me is their ceiling.
And back to kind of what I just said, I went and looked up some numbers here on that the percentage that I just gave out. They're in the bottom 4 in the Big 12. Kansas State is in BPI, while Iowa State is top 2. They're number 2.
Yeah, and
so that's where that number
the
comes
metrics
from.
Love Iowa State, which is fascinating to me because they didn't play anybody. Their non-conference schedule, they were playing the Little Sisters of the Poor every week.
Again.
But they were beating them by like 70 points, and you get credit for whipping up on the bad teams on your schedule, which Kansas State, rather notably, did not do to the North Alabamas and Chicago States of the world.
This Iowa State schedule, I remember bringing this up on the show. It's over the summer when they were, everybody was releasing their non-conference schedules for the year. Like, Iowa State wants to be considered a top team in the Big 12, right? Here's who they played non-conference. Green Bay. They beat by 41. You know who's head coach at Green Bay right now?
Matt LaFleur.
Sundance Wicks.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Our guy.
Yeah.
Sundance
is up there these days. MIAA great. They played, speaking of the MIAA, former MIAA league member, Lindenwood.
Yeah.
They beat them 102-47. They played and murdered Idaho State, Grambling, VCU, a decent A10 program, lost or won by 4. Virginia Tech beat them. Texas A&M, I mean, they're good, or competitive, beat them. Like, they played DePaul. They only won by 19 over DePaul. That should be a loss.
Yeah.
If you played DePaul and only won by 19, that should be considered a loss as far as I'm concerned. Like, okay, they played Iowa, who is like the worst Iowa basketball year in years. Won big there. Killed Prairie View A&M, Florida A&M. Like, man, you're beating up on the SWAC or the MEAC. I'm sorry, I don't know which one is which.
Non-conference strength of schedule rating is the number that Ken Palm provides. Iowa State was 338th in the country.
Come on, like that. And the thing about like Ken Palm or Bart Torvik or these other places that do these ratings, those things even out over time. Like, when we get into February, a lot of those games against Grambling and the like are going to be smoothed out with the rest of their resume. So I can understand why they are so beloved. Like, TCU was in the same neighborhood. So was Oklahoma State. OSU's bad, and they had a 331st ranked schedule. But as difficult as this game is going to be, if you're just talking man-to-man, K-State's better than Iowa State. Like, I'm convinced of that. I love bringing this up. When your best friend and your best man in your wedding is a bracketologist and runs his own college basketball analytics like app and website, you get inside information like this. Yeah. He's got Iowa State at home favored by 0.2 of a point. And that doesn't include like actual crowd noise or things like that. That just includes, metrics and whatever.
I actually think this is probably a more talented Iowa State roster than they've had. Because some of the freshmen they've got are real players.
Sure.
Momchilovich is a real. I hope I got that right.
Sounded right.
Momchilovich, he's a good player. Like that's a value add for them. Their best player though is questionable for tonight. I don't know if Taman Lipsey's going to go. They were optimistic at last check that he might be able to go. But if he doesn't play, that changes how I feel about this game because Lipsey's the engine. Like, even as a freshman last year, he's the guy that kind of makes this all go. Without Lipsey, they still beat TCU in Fort Worth without him, but TCU turned the ball over a billion times. And K-State has been susceptible to turnovers at times, but if K-State takes care of the ball and Lipsey doesn't play, that to me is the formula for K-State walking out of there with a win.
Cats are getting 7.5. 7.5 point dogs. You taking that line? In Ames?
I think I am. Like,
I think I would too.
Yeah, I think they can. Like, I think they can win. So yeah, I'll take plus 7.5.
Yeah.
I think they'll keep it close.
Yeah, I think so too.
At a bare minimum.
And I mean, K-State does that regardless, right? Like they scrap and claw, and if they're not shooting well or not scoring well, they'll drag you down to their level.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would take that, honestly. K-State plus 7.5. If you can find an even better number, then take an even better number as well. We will get to some more K-State later on with Tim Fitzgerald. Right now, we owe you a break, and then we'll hear from Andy Reid coming up on 580 Sports Talk. Busy day at One Arrowhead Drive as the Chiefs get ready to take on the Baltimore Ravens coming up this Sunday, a game you'll be able to catch right here on 580 WIBW. Westwood One's coverage of the AFC Championship game. Ian Eagle will be on the call. Let's hear what Andy Reid had to say. Big Red speaking to reporters, and this is what he had to say previewing this matchup against the Baltimore Ravens.
Guys that won't practice today, Sky Moore, Trey Smith is sick. Mike Edwards still on the protocol. Pacheco, his toe, but getting better. And Joe Tooney with the pec strain. So look forward to the challenge of playing the Ravens. Heck of a football team. Very well coached. I mean, John does a phenomenal job there as the head football coach, and he knows the whole game. He was great special teams coach, great secondary coach, and he's been a great head coach. And very proud of him for all that he's done and accomplished. And then Mike working with the defense. He's not only done it now in the NFL, but he did it at a Division I school in Michigan. Did a great job there, and came back to the Ravens and has really put together a good defense with a heck of a scheme. And Todd's done the same thing offensively. They're playing well. Their quarterback is a spectacular player and playing well. So as is the other guys, but it obviously starts with him. So anyways, with that, time's yours.
Andy, just with the ongoing connection between Mike and Travis, is there a way for you to describe with perspective what that has meant to this whole era for you guys?
Sure. They've got a special chemistry. I experienced it with Brett and sharp. I mean, they were phenomenal together, and then I experienced it with T.O. and Donovan, and they were great together. And Deshaun Jackson stepped in, and they had a chemistry there with Jeremy, and then come here, and these guys developed this chemistry. So I've been fortunate to be around that, but it's hard to explain why and how these guys connect like that, but they do. And they both have great feel for the game, and then they have a great feel for what the other one sees and is going to do in a very short time span. So,
and just as a baseline of everything else you're able to do, I mean, again, is there any way to summarize how that frees up everything else, your faith in that part of the operation?
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's part of the equation, obviously, a big part of it, and has been. And so it allows you to do other things and play off of that. But there's some other, ingredients that have to take place too to make it all work.
Andy, curious what you thought about Shamari Connor after he had to go in the game, and also Alex Reddy as well.
Yeah, so I thought Shamari did a nice job in there. That encompasses calls and playing for a young guy to go in and be able to communicate back there is not the easiest thing, and he did it well. I think it helped that he's been able to go in and nickel situations, dime situations. So it's not the first time he was in the game, but it was for that extended period of time. And I thought he did a nice job, physical, good tackler, did well in the coverage game. Allegretti is a guy that has started for us a number of games, and all the guys look at him like he's a starter. So everybody's got confidence that he can come in and do a nice job. Tough kid. And not everything's the most or the prettiest thing that you've seen, but he's going to fight you right to the end. And he's smart. Good combination.
Andy, you've faced great defenses. How deep is this defense?
Yeah, they do a great job. Like I said, Mike, it's the scheme in which he's added his touch to with the group there, and so they've got multiple fronts, multiple coverages. They execute them well. A lot of the teams that try to do a lot don't do it as well as this group does. So not only are the players listening, but they're being taught the right things, and they're able to go out and perform at a high level.
Andy, at what point do you turn your attention to the next game? I guess after this Bills game, you already knew you were going to play the Ravens. Or were you watching the Ravens stuff on the flight home?
Yeah, no, once I got back, I went in and started then. Yeah.
Was it a situation where you're at the office most of the night?
I stayed there. It was slippery out there.
A lot was made last week of finally going on the road and the playoffs, not having fun there. So I thought going back on the road.
Yeah, I didn't think much of the, going on the road and playing would be, that much different. Because we do it during the season, and you've had some crowds. Green Bay was a wild crowd, packed up there, and other places. I mean, that we've gone. So I didn't look at it that bad. And then on top of that, that's a great environment up there to play a game. So even though they're against you, it's really, that's football right there. And they love their team, and they're passionate, very similar to coming in here to Arrowhead. So it's a great environment, and that's why I've tried to look at that
Talking about road games, Andy, just the players really embrace that opposition role. And just how much did it give you any satisfaction seeing them at the end of the game just kind of loving about themselves and loving like being the quote unquote bad guys?
You're saying us being the bad guys. Listen, I thought the guys stuck together, and I would say this at home and away, but again, you're on the road, and I mean that is part of it. It's but the guys, they stuck together through the ups and the downs of the game, which every game presents, and they kept battling and kept hope. And I mentioned after the game that I thought that was the thing that jumped out at me the most. Not that I didn't think they would do it, but just at the level that they did it, supporting each other was. And nobody flinched, blinked, and just kept battling.
Coach, Andy, what would you say is the reason your running attack has improved considerably in the postseason?
Well, listen, I thought we did okay during the year with opportunities there, and but I would tell you that Andy Heck does a heck of a job with no pun intended, but he does a heck of a job with with designing the runs, and the guys execute them. Obviously, Pacheco back healthy. You've got a nice rotation in there that you can go to, and the guys, as well as Pacheco's doing, Clyde, when he has an opportunity, jumps in and does a nice job also. So. And then the offensive line takes a lot of pride in doing what they do, and they know it starts with them. And I think they've been very accurate with their blocking assignments.
Coach, speaking with a couple of the veteran guys, we talked about the younger players and how they pretty much only know AFC Championship games, so Super Bowl, right? The successes of being here. Talk about how beneficial it was for them to go through those lumps this season, those and downs.
It grows you, right? As you'd say. So, and there's a lot of parity in this league. You better figure that out early. That it's not an easy ride. You got to be able to battle through things, and I can tell the guys, the veterans can tell the guys, but the young guys have to experience that. So, but I thought they handled it well. They kept pushing forward, kind of focused on the job at hand, and that was getting better in some cases, just becoming better at their game.
We've got 4 more. We're going to work the room. Go ahead, Pat. Kind of piggybacking off that, as competitive as Pat is, I'm sure there were times he was frustrated with the way things were going and disappointed. We saw that boil over at times. What was your messaging to him, or what conversations did you have with him about just staying positive, believing that eventually you guys can get where you wanted to be?
Yeah. Listen, Pat's a perfectionist, and he's competitive. As competitive as any of us right here. I mean, it's and more so. He wants it right around him, but he's willing to teach, that's the unique part. So he's willing to share what he sees with the guys from his sight, and help the guys get into position. As long as they're willing to work, he's all in. And so that's what I saw. And the frustration is more off of feeling urgency and winning games. I mean, that's what he's all about. And so I'm not sure there was a frustration other than, hey, let's go. This is we're playing at the highest level in the world, and if you're going to be as good as we think we're going to be, then the error margin is like this big. So you've got to tighten it down.
Right. Andy, between the Saturday Night Live stuff and Travis's relationship with Taylor, I wonder if you've seen that has posed any particular challenge to Travis to keep out the noise this way in ways he may not have had to deal with in the past.
Yeah, I haven't really seen it affect him anyway. He kind of worked through some being banged up, and I think that week off there helped him. And but I haven't seen anything with his relationship, with his off the field stuff, with the commercials and Saturday Night Live, all that stuff. He just goes. I think that all plays into what he is. I mean, that's just part of it. He does all that stuff real easy. So I don't think it gets him out of his personality, and he has to change it all. Yeah.
I gather from how you're saying it, that none of that ever posed any extra challenge for you this season.
No, not at all. Not at all. No. I mean, yeah, not at all.
Andy, in today's game, kind of with the interior pressure that teams try to have, how important has your center and your two guards been to Patrick and what he's able to accomplish?
Yeah, that's the shortest distance to the quarterback. So to have strength there inside is important. To be able to stay square as long as you can inside is important. That takes strength. That's important. I think it's also important that they're good communicators to the tackles. Those are new guys to the system, so they've helped encourage them along the way and help teach them too. Yeah.
Last one. You've known John Harbaugh for a long, long time. He was already at Philly for a year when you got there. What was it about him that made you want to be on your very first staff? And did you know him at all before that?
Yeah, I knew his dad. That's who I knew, and his dad is the best. And so he was real close to Lavelle Edwards. So I did a thing at one time with the two of them when I was a young coach. I was kind of carrying it up at the hospital. So we spent a couple days together, and it was great. I never forgot that part. So when I met John, I'm going, man, if you're half as good as your dad, you're on. So it didn't take very long, and he is that. He's had a great mentor, and obviously both brothers are tremendous guys. Yeah.
So that's Andy Reid speaking a little bit earlier today at One Arrowhead Drive. One of the most, I guess John Harbaugh is more successful than Doug Peterson, right?
He won a Super Bowl.
Well, sort of Doug.
Yeah, Doug did, didn't he?
The longevity.
He got immediately. Yeah. He got immediately fired.
Yeah,
so,
that's true.
That,
yeah,
longevity of John Harbaugh.
Yeah,
I totally forgot that was Doug Peterson already. It tells you the impact of that ring vis-a-vis,
Well, yeah,
Harbaugh's impact there in Baltimore.
Well, we remember Nick Foles. Remember his doing in getting that ring, but yeah, no, that's certainly for sure. We'll hear from Patrick Mahomes and a couple more Chiefs players a little bit later on in the show today. But when we come back after the news to start the 3:00 hour, talk about Baltimore's run game versus the Kansas City defense here on 580 Sports Talk. Wednesday afternoon. This is 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzinski, Dan Lucero, and Spencer Dupuis here with you. Live on 580 AM, 104.9 FM, online at 580WIBW.com, and on YouTube. 580 Sports Talk is the name of our YouTube channel. We had some folks asking if there was something up with the YouTube stream today, but we are live. We are all good to go. We went a full hour without a single YouTube comment. I don't think that's ever happened since we started doing this.
That is bizarre.
Even like a spam comment didn't trickle in.
And we've had consistent number of viewers on the YouTube. They just don't seem to want to talk to us.
No, which is fine. Like,
yeah.
hey, I wouldn't want to talk to me either. I get it. Totally understand that. We do have plenty to get to coming up in this 3 o'clock hour of the program. We'll hear from Patrick Mahomes coming up in a little bit. We'll also look ahead to the matchup between Baltimore's really strong running game and Kansas City's approach to slowing it down. Plus one got to go. We'll get to your texts and any comments we do get on YouTube. Hey, we got one in. Shout out to Scott, our first YouTube comment of the day. Thank you, Scott.
Hi, Scott.
Everybody else who's watching along, listening along, we appreciate you guys as well. Hit us up either on the text line or in the comment section on our YouTube stream. Again, 580 Sports Talk is where you can find us on YouTube. Let's dive right on in, shall we, to this Chiefs matchup against the Baltimore run game. And with some time to reflect, let me start right here. Okay, now we've got the commentary on YouTube who's all chiming in saying, hi, watching. Laramie says, sorry to hurt your feelings. Feelings not hurt. It's all good. No one is legally required to comment if you're watching on the YouTube. We appreciate all of you guys who are watching along. Clayton says, just been a busy day. Not a problem.
Yeah,
totally fine.
Wednesdays get busy. You know how it is.
No,
Wednesday,
you are obligated to comment every single hour of the show.
If you even think of opening up the YouTube, you have to leave a comment.
There will be a test administered at the end of each 4-hour edition of 580 Sports Talk.
This is like home life becoming work life as well. This is like when I asked my wife, like, is everything okay? Like, yeah, everything is fine. What are you talking about? I'm like, oh, you said this one specific word with slightly different inflection. Like I thought something might be wrong. And then, okay, now this is like all lined up. Check your feelings at the door. All right, I get it. I get it. Fine. Thank you, everyone who is watching and listening along. All right, I wanted to say, before we get to what this is actually going to look like between the Chiefs defense and the Baltimore run game, specifically that part of their offense, with a little time to look back and reflect on what the Chiefs did defensively against the Bills and the run defense in particular. Because you heard me say it on the post-game stream on YouTube, heard me say it on the show on Monday. I was starting to get a little bit concerned about this Chiefs run defense. And maybe, the analytical numbers, the metrics, the EPA per play, success rate, things like that, have said all year, not a great run defense for the Chiefs. In fact, according to expected points added, one of the worst in the NFL. And that's just one tool. You know how we feel about the analytical stuff. That's just one tool. You use that as part of your overall analysis. But those things have said, yeah, this isn't a great Chiefs run defense overall this season. With some time to reflect and look back and to not just finish up thoughts on the Bills game, but look forward to this Ravens game, where do you guys land on this run defense? Like, you're concerned in this game because Baltimore is really good at running the ball, but is the run defense something that is a legitimate worry for you at this stage of the year?
I think a lot of what we saw as the struggle for the Chiefs rush defense in the first half, particularly against Buffalo, had to do with a couple of factors. Number one, Buffalo utilized a strategic wrinkle, the sixth offensive lineman, that maybe the Chiefs weren't ready for. I think Chiefs went into Sunday thinking we can't let Josh Allen beat us. And if they run it on us, that's preferable to Josh Allen making plays down the field with his arm. Obviously, that was the game plan, right? We saw that reflected in how often Allen was forced to check down or throw behind the line of scrimmage and how few explosive pass plays there were for the Bills. The plan was to limit Josh Allen. And if there were some run plays that they hit for, that was just the cost of doing business. And the Bills, on the flip side to that, matched the Chiefs personnel with another heavy body in there, a sixth offensive lineman, and they had success moving the Chiefs front four down the field, displacing them. I think that was who wasn't on the broadcast that said that. I don't think it was Romo. I think it was somebody at halftime that was talking about the Chiefs. Their feet are moving.
Mhm.
Like their feet, they are being moved. They are being dislodged, I think was the term that was used on the broadcast. So obviously that doesn't bode well when you just look at that and you think about, man, our front four is getting dislodged and we're giving up a bunch of successful rushing plays. That doesn't bode well against a Ravens team that comes in. We talked about EPA per play, expected points added per play. The Chiefs have the 28th ranked rush defense, and they're going up against the 3rd ranked rushing offense. The Chiefs had 23rd in the league in success rate against the run, where the Ravens are 3rd in the league in offensive success rate with the run. Like on paper, this looks like a mismatch. So what do you do to defeat that? So bigger bodies on the field for the offense means you might have to put some bigger bodies on the field for the defense. I was listening to Dominique Foxworth's podcast earlier today. Dominic Foxworth, former NFL player, defensive back, has a podcast on ESPN. And he was talking to Chris Canty, who does national radio, I think, on ESPN radio.
Correct, yeah.
And that was the point that Canty was making, was they're going to have to put an extra heavy on the field, whether that's a linebacker, whether that's another defensive lineman. They've got to match big with big. The Chiefs do, if they want to have a hope of neutralizing the line of scrimmage and limiting the Ravens' ground game. The problem with that from the Chiefs' perspective is that's not the strength of their defense. Their personnel on the defensive line is not the strength of what they do.
Right.
It hasn't been their strength all year. The strength is the guys on the back end, the nickel defense, 5 defensive backs, and 6 defensive backs in some cases with the 3 safeties that Steve Spagnuolo likes to use. So do you sacrifice that strength to bring another heavy onto the field and trust that whoever you do leave in at defensive back is going to be able to cover one-on-one and play action situations, or is going to be able to tackle down the field if Lamar gets loose or if one of the running backs gets loose? Or do you stick with what it is that you do and say, like you did against the Bills, we'll live with big plays in the run, we just can't give them up against the pass? Essentially, the question is, do you have to approach the Ravens differently because of their proficiency on the ground?
This is such an interesting philosophical question that raises, right? Is at this, we know what the Chiefs are good at, as you pointed out, and we know what they want to do. But in a game like this, season on the line, how do you balance out what you want to do and what you need to do to end up winning this game? Oh my gosh, I don't even know where I would go with that. I kind of feel like the answer is to ride with what Dominique Foxworth offered, that you have to try to match what Baltimore is going to end up doing. Because honestly, who do you trust more in their base set? Okay, we're talking base defense, one-on-one, you've got to go win. Chiefs defensive line or the Chiefs secondary? Who do you trust more? And that's not a knock on whoever you don't pick, but I kind of feel like the answer is the secondary, right? Like, you've got 2 all. L'Jarius Sneed, for all intents and purposes, should have been an all-pro this year. Yes. You've got 2 all-pro caliber corners, a safety in Justin Reid, who I haven't checked his PFF numbers recently, but has been better in coverage this season. If Mike Edwards can go, you can live with him matching up with someone. You've got backup cornerbacks who in a pinch you can throw one-on-one against someone. I sort of, and with Derek Nottie banged up, that changes things up front too. I don't know. I kind of would lean with trusting those guys on islands, I think.
I think Nottie, it could be some positive news because Reed didn't mention him as not practicing today. So if he gets back to practice, could he play Sunday?
That's a big deal.
Yeah, that would be significant.
And also Willie Gay was not mentioned.
Yeah, if Gay can go too, that's obviously huge in trying to slow down this run game with that sideline. If you're trying to run these outside concepts that Baltimore is going to try to run, as good of a player as Nick Bolton is, that's really Gay territory. Running sideline to sideline, that's what you want number 50 out there for.
Yeah, and somebody who in a play action situation is going to be a little bit of a better matchup in coverage against. I mean, he's smaller, but he can run with a Mark Andrews or an Isaiah Likely or a running back in coverage or a slot receiver in coverage. And he does that better than Bolton does. There were a couple of plays that the Bills were able to isolate Bolton one-on-one. Like one of Diggs's plays that he made was a catch inside where they motioned Diggs to the slot and got him one-on-one with Nick Bolton. Like, yeah, don't want that.
Nope.
Don't want Zay Flowers matched up with Nick Bolton in any kind of scenario. That would be some Barney Rubble trouble for the Chiefs defense if they ended up there. it's a fascinating discussion to have because on the one hand, it's so reductive to say, well, you want to make Lamar Jackson beat you with his arm, because that has been what we have said about Lamar Jackson virtually.
Bill Polian? Is that you?
Yeah, exactly. Like, that's who I sound like, right?
Yeah.
I sound like Nolan or Rocky or whatever that old draft guy was who said, who basically tanked Geno Smith's draft stock all on his own. I sound like that guy when I say, you got to make Lamar beat you with his arm because he's much better with his legs. And he is great with his legs. And he is, I think, more dangerous with his legs. Like, I think we were talking about this on Monday going into this matchup. Are you really that concerned if the Chiefs don't sack Lamar Jackson? Like, if they record 0 sacks, do you think the Chiefs could still potentially slow down the Ravens if they're not sacking Lamar Jackson?
I do.
Because, yeah, it'd be nice to get the negative play, but if you're selling out for negative plays, that's when they are going to hit for the big plays because Lamar is so elusive in the pocket.
And because, like we talked about before, the Ravens, the big reason or a big reason why they are different and better than Buffalo's best receiver had been, frankly, both of its tight ends in the last several weeks. Stephon Diggs has been playing terribly and was bad again in that game. The Ravens right now, I can give you 5 guys that I say, yeah, Lamar's probably confident in throwing the ball to that guy to some degree down the field. Mark Andrews, if he's able to go, and it sounds like he's going to play. It sounds like he's tracking that direction. Isaiah Likely has become that guy. Zay Flowers for sure. Rashad Bateman, who has finally been healthy, and while he didn't do a ton early in the season, has played decently well. And I think OBJ is probably in that category. Now, he's a distant 5th, but I think Lamar's got trust in him too. So I am more concerned, I think, about trying to eliminate those gigantic chunk plays in the passing game. And I'm more willing to say, you know, if they beat us with the run, they can beat us with the run. The problem with Baltimore is the fact that they have become so much more dangerous with a offensive scheme.
This is the best passing attack they've ever had
easily
with Lamar Jackson, who was always underrated as a passer, and now he's not throwing to bums. You see what happened when they got him some dudes that weren't bums, when he wasn't out there throwing to 88-year-old Deshaun Jackson and Devin Duvernay as his top 2 targets. When they went out and got him some real guys, this is what it looks like. It looks like another MVP.
Well, and it also helps to bring in an offensive coordinator who is willing to say, hey, you can throw. Like, we all know what Greg Roman is. We all know what Greg Roman is. He's the same that he has been everywhere he's ever been, including San Francisco with Colin Kaepernick and then in Baltimore with Lamar Jackson.
Greg Roman is the bagged garden salad of offensive coordinators because you feel really good about the choice and it does the job. But
after 2 years, it's probably kind of gross.
Stale.
It gets stale immediately. Like, you take that bag salad out of the fridge the next day and all the lettuce is brown. By the way, life hack, put a paper towel in there with it. That'll extend the life on the put a paper towel in the bag and extends the life of that bag salad for another day or two. It really does.
You put it in a container like Tupperware.
Yeah.
And put a little bit of water in there.
A little water, and a paper towel. Yeah. That probably, yeah.
I mean, shoot, you're eating bag salad for 3 weeks with these methods now.
But no, that's Greg Roman. Like, there's a shelf life and it's short.
No, it is.
His effectiveness. They have,
because it's stale. It's the same thing. And it's
once you're onto it, you're onto it.
And it's different. Like, Colin Kaepernick was a different runner than Lamar Jackson. So when you ran it with those 2 guys, it was, whoa, look at what Kaepernick is doing. Whoa, look at what Lamar is doing. This is crazy. But it's boring. It's exciting because of the guy who is carrying the ball, not because of the scheme itself. The scheme is boring and repetitive and bland. And once you catch on, you shut things down. And by the way, when you're running a rushing quarterback scheme like that is so boring, you know what that also leads to? Your quarterback getting killed all the time. Let's take note. The last 2 years, did Lamar Jackson play full seasons?
No, he did not.
This season, when he has taken fewer hits, you've been able to throw the ball more often, and you've changed from all of our quarterback runs are because we're just running Lamar to now, hey, Lamar, most of the runs should be scrambles. We're going to design some things because you're an incredibly gifted athlete, but a lot of your runs are going to be scrambles. And when you get outside the pocket, think to pass first instead of run first. Simply a change in like philosophy, even more than change in play calls, has taken Lamar from, he's good, but he only plays 8 games a year to, oh my God, look at this. Like, he's a revelation again. It's like 2019 all over again, really. with the way Lamar has played this year in an offense that actually caters to a guy who can throw the ball. So all that to be said, and I don't want to sound too much like a guy who got fired today, Joe Barry, but like I would rather take away those deep passing threats. I would rather try to not let Mark Andrews beat me on a 25-yard corner. I don't want Zay Flowers getting behind me and running free to the end zone. I would rather make Baltimore play more plays, I think, and it's difficult because they're a really good team in general. I'd rather have them run more plays and try to shut them down with my base guys up front than let them beat me over the top.
Especially if you can be as efficient on offense as you were last week. I mean, what was the disparity in number of plays? Like 78 to 46 last week, I think it was. And really the Chiefs had 3 kneel downs in the game. So it wasn't even it was an even greater disparity than that. Like, you can do that one week on the road. Can you do that back-to-back weeks? Can you win that way back-to-back weeks? Or do you have to get some quicker stops and get your defense off the field so they're not out there for 35, 38 minutes worth of game time?
31 more plays for Buffalo than Kansas City last week. That's crazy for a playoff game.
Yeah.
I mean, like, that's what Green Bay was trying to do for both of its playoff games. Now the Cowboys fell apart and the 49ers were just better. But that's what they had been trying to do, is we're going to eat up a half a quarter every time we touch the ball. And that is a great strategy when you're like, we don't know that we're good enough to beat this team. When you're the Bills and you're supposed to be a Super Bowl contender, you probably should not have that be your strategy.
And I don't think it should be Baltimore's either. I
agree.
I don't think Baltimore should come into this game thinking, oh, we're just going to 3 yards and cloud of dust them and have the ball for 40 minutes and keep the ball out of Mahomes' hands. They're going to come in and say, we got home field. We got the MVP. We got the best defense in football, best scoring defense in football. They're going to have to beat us, but we're going to do us. We're not changing what we do. We're going to do us. So the challenge then is, do the Chiefs say the same? Do the Chiefs come in and say, we're going to do what we do? Or do they, like Steve Spagnuolo is wont to do and successfully, make a personnel tweak or make a schematic tweak to give them a better chance, at the very least on early down, to get a heavier body in there to maybe limit them to fewer yards on first down? Then the problem becomes, well, what if the Ravens go tempo? Do they go tempo to counter that? And keep those bigs on the field, and then they're chasing Lamar Jackson around on 3rd and 7, and that's not a situation you want to be in. It is a fascinating chess match because of how balanced this Ravens offense is. And I don't know that I would have said that, as much as I love Lamar Jackson. And I think, like I said, I think he's been underrated as a passer for a big chunk of his career. But their passing game has never looked like this. This is the best they've ever been, and the best Lamar has ever been at throwing the ball, thanks to the guys he's got catching it, and thanks to the scheme. And that makes them multifaceted in a way that has made them the best team in the AFC.
So we were talking about injuries for the Chiefs, and our friend Matt Derrick, I saw on Twitter. So Andy Reid did not, in fact, say everybody who was not practicing today. So Derek Nottie and Willie Gay were, in fact, not on the field.
Okay.
And he says Nottie is the only player certain to miss Sunday's game.
Wow. All right. So
Yeah,
there's a big deal then.
Yeah, there's some optimism around Gay for sure that's out there, that people are saying that he's trending in a good direction, and they say the same about Pacheco too. But yeah, Nottie with that chest injury, that arm injury,
tricep,
tricep, that can be tough.
Yeah, once you get into those muscle, like soft tissue is obviously a bear to deal with. But when you hear guys who have pec or bicep or tricep or something, that always seems pretty miserable. By the way, one last point about this scheme that Baltimore is using and the re-emphasis on throwing the ball with Lamar Jackson. Where was Todd Monken before Baltimore?
College.
He was at Georgia. Spent a couple years as the offensive coordinator for Georgia. And I understand that the talent disparity in college football is worlds different than the NFL. I understand that. He got Stetson Bennett to look like the best player in America for a couple of postseason runs at Georgia. Give him an NFL, give him a star like Lamar Jackson. Yeah, I'm not surprised that he's turned them into one of the best offenses in the league.
What 3 years he's had.
Yeah, no kidding. He's going to be a head coach at some point.
To make the jump to the NFL and have this much success in year one. But I mean, it's probably thought about that it would happen because you have a good team.
Yeah.
That he's a good offense.
Everybody is going to. Baltimore is the team like Philly was last year, like many teams have been before. And I think Detroit is also somewhat in this category. Everyone wants a piece of what Baltimore is doing. Anyone who has been involved in Baltimore's defense the last year or two, they want a piece of what Mike McDonald is doing. Jesse Minter, who is at Michigan, the defensive coordinator for the national champion Wolverines. He is probably going to end up following Harbaugh if Harbaugh goes to the NFL.
Yes.
I was just reading today, the expectation is that within a few years, he's going to be an NFL head coach. Like, people want him because he comes from this tree that is growing in Baltimore. Mike McDonald's probably going to be a head coach, or not this year, the next year.
Yeah, I mean, he's already getting a ton of interviews.
Yeah, and I bet Todd Monken is too, with the way he's been running things for that offense. It's crazy how quickly they became, because you were on them at the beginning of the year. If I remember correctly, you picked Baltimore to win that division.
Yes.
And I said playoff team, but I still believed in Cincinnati, which we never quite got to see come to fruition because Burrow got hurt. But even so,
spent the whole year hurt.
Yeah. Even so, though, Baltimore has looked this good. And I'm not surprised everyone wants a piece of that.
Well-coached football team.
Coming up on the other side of this timeout, before we get to Patrick Mahomes, we'll play some One Gotta Go. That's coming up on 580 Sports Talk.
Give me $200.
Well, gotta go.
Well, one's gotta go here on 580 Sports Talk. That's up there with my favorite intros we have.
It's so good.
The one with Fitz's might still be the best we well, Paul Meyerberg's is good. Britt made CJ's. That one's pretty good. That's
Still,
Dr.
it's the
Phil.
Dr. Phil clip that really, I don't even understand. I don't even understand how it fits in with the theme of the game. It's just, yeah, I'm going to kill you.
I'm going to kill you. Yeah,
Give me
one's got to go.
$200.
I'm going to kill one of these. All right. So we've done a variation of this over the last couple of weeks while the NFL coaching carousel has been in effect. But I'm going to give you 3 guys you can interview for your head coaching job of Dan's team and Spencer's team incorporated. You can't interview one of them. One's not even in the running. So I'll give you Vrabel, Belichick, Harbaugh, and let's go with Ben Johnson, who's the hottest offensive coordinator on the market. One's got to go.
Vrabel, Belichick, Harbaugh, and Ben Johnson. Gosh, I like Ben Johnson. We haven't been a head coach in the NFL. And that's, there's something to be said for the certainty of guys who've done it before and been successful doing it. I mean, Vrabel's been to an AFC championship game.
Mm-hmm.
Harbaugh's been to 3 straight conference championship games and a Super Bowl and won a national title. And obviously we know Belichick's resume. Ben Johnson doesn't have that. First time OC. What kind of people is he going to hire?
Mm-hmm.
Like what's his eye for assistants like? Who's he going to surround himself with? How is he going to be as a talent evaluator? Those are all things we don't really know. But we also know those answers about Belichick aren't maybe as good as they used to be, because he continued to insist on surrounding himself with Joe Judge, Matt Patricia, Josh McDaniels, guys like that. So I don't know. It's between those two for me, and because I still think Vrabel and Harbaugh can bring some positives.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I would say Johnson just because of the uncertainty of being a first-time head coach. He's got to go, which is unfair because I think you make a good head coach, but I'm less certain of that. So.
I'm assuming, Spencer, you're keeping Ben Johnson because you want him to be the coach of your favorite football team already.
That would be correct. My one's got to go. The guy I got to kick out of there is got to be Belichick, just because I just think he needs to retire, relax. So the last couple of years have not been easy on him.
I guess my big question, and this
as
is
great as a head coach he is,
right? And you can't take that away from him.
I just think he's got to go, got to retire. He's there.
My big question is what would make, because Atlanta's the team that's interviewed him twice. Like, what makes Atlanta different than the last couple of years of the Patriots if Bill Belichick is there? Because if he's going, he's going to have personnel control. At least to some degree.
They're extremely similar. A lot of talent on the defensive side of the ball and a huge question mark at quarterback.
And do the Falcons have more offensive playmakers than the Patriots? Sure. Their offensive line is probably a little bit better. But if you're bringing along Judge and Patricia and McDaniel or O'Brien, well, no, Bill O'Brien got a job at Ohio State. But if you're bringing those guys along, like, okay, you still run into the issue of your coaches aren't good and you're missing your best assistant, Dante Scarnecchia, who retired again. But also, you're still out of quarterback. What did New England just go through the last 3 seasons? They didn't have a quarterback. And Bill Belichick is the guy who picked Mac Jones and picked Bailey Zappi. And Zappi's a 4th rounder. That's different. But, like, Belichick was in charge of that and couldn't find the guy. What makes you think he can find him in Atlanta? So I'm probably taking Belichick out. Johnson, at least you can make the argument it's new blood, it's a new vision, it's a new voice, it's someone younger. I think that aids him for sure.
All right, for my one got to go. It is already mock draft season.
Yeah.
And we are aware that the Chiefs will be drafting pretty low in the first round. They'll have one of the last 4 picks of the first round, and many suspect that they will use that pick to draft a wide receiver. They're probably not going to get a crack at one of the best pass catchers in the draft, though. In Mel Kiper Jr.'s most recent first-round mock draft, there are 4 pass catchers who go off the board in the top 10.
Wow.
4 in the top 9, in fact.
Marvin Harrison.
And one of them's got to go. Marvin Harrison Jr., Brock Bowers, Rome Odunze, Malik Neighbors.
Scott Van Pelt called him Rome Odunze, and it was very funny.
It was.
All right, so Harrison, Odunze.
Better than Roma Duns.
Bowers, or Malik Neighbors. I think I am going to go with Neighbors, and I don't mean that to be an insult. I mean, he was awesome this year. He should have won the Biletnikoff Award for best wide receiver in the country over Marvin Harrison. And that's not to say he's a better player, but I think he had a better season than Marvin Harrison did, playing with the Heisman Trophy winner too. I would go with Malik Neighbors, though, because I think the total package with Marvin Harrison Jr., with Bowers, it's something different. And the way you're going to line him up as a tight end, in line, or split out, you can just put him at wide receiver. You can do things with him out of the backfield. You can probably run him as an H-back. I mean, he's not going to block, but you can run him out of all sorts of different formations. He gives you something that's so different and unique. And I think the athletic profile of Rome Odunze is unbelievable. Like, that's the kind of player I think that if you say, we want someone that we are going to mold into an all-pro receiver. Like, the tools are there, the body is there, the instincts, the athleticism, it is all there. We want to just fine-tune him into being an all-pro player. I think that's Odunze. Whereas Marvin Harrison, I think, is a little bit more of a finished product, and that's not good or bad. It is what it is. So that essentially leaves Malik Neighbors as really good prospect. I think can be a good player at the next level, but I think everyone else offers something a little bit more than him. So that's what I would eliminate.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have any. You've basically taken my opinion, so I would agree with you on that.
Yeah, did I monologue enough for the whole room? Yeah.
My one's got to go here.
Who's yours, by the way?
Yeah, it'd probably be Neighbors. I like him a lot. And maybe this is unfair because I saw more of the other 3. I didn't watch it as much LSU as I did those other 3 teams. But Yeah, Neighbors had like a number two. His number 2 guy on the field with him all year was better than the other guy's number 2, and that may have aided his numbers.
I think I would take Keon Coleman over Malik Neighbors too.
Interesting.
I think I would. He's a freak. This is a.
Do you like Brian Thomas better than Malik Neighbors?
No, I'd put those two right next to each other.
Okay.
And again, I think they're both good players. That then not trying to insult them. This is a
for the record, those are both in the top 15.
Crazy
of the Mel Kiper Jr. mock. And if anyone was curious, he has the Chiefs selecting Troy Franklin out of Oregon with their pick.
I like Troy Franklin a lot. This feels like a year where if you're going to get a receiver, I would take one in the first 2 rounds, I think, or at least in the top 2 days. Like we've had years recently where. What was it this past year or 2 years ago where I guess it was this year where it wasn't a ton of top end greatness, but if you wanted to get a
guys that were really set apart, it was Addison, it was Smith and Jigba, and
Quentin Johnston.
No, it wasn't him. It was
because 4 receivers were taken back to back this year.
Yeah, there were, but it was pretty well like.
Flowers was also in that group. He was a late round. No, I mean, Quentin Johnston was talked about as a first-round pick for a long time. He just was a bust. Addison was my guy. I would have taken Addison.
Yeah,
top 15.
It was probably Smith and Jigba, Addison, and Flowers, and then Quentin Johnson as well. But like I considered Smith and Jigba, Flowers, and Addison the 3 best prospects.
Yeah, Smith and Jigba and Addison for sure.
If we'd been doing one got to go on this last year, I would have said Johnson was the one that had to go.
And you would have been proven right.
I would have been very correct. Yes.
Go ahead, Spencer.
So not fully sports, but it does have a sports angle to it.
All right.
We have, I'm a big food guy. So the next 3 weeks before the Super Bowl, I think my one's got to go is going to be Super Bowl.
Okay.
Foods. We're going to start today with pizza toppings.
All right.
If you're ordering for your party and you have 4 options and you can only order, say, 6 pizzas, 2 of each. So you got to kick one out there.
Okay.
Either plain cheese, pepperoni, sausage, or mushrooms. And you have to order for your party. So not just for you. So not any, like you have a party of 15 coming over, 20 coming over. So no one's left out. What are you ordering? You order 2 of each, total of 6.
Okay.
So one's got to go.
The only question is, are you getting too much overlap in the pizza, in the pepperoni people and the sausage people? Because those are the 2 I would order. Like if we're talking just like your basic pizza, I'm taking a pepperoni or a sausage first. Cheese has to stay because if you're having a party,
if it's a party,
there's going to be picky people there.
Yeah, the people that they have the appetite of a Kevin McAllister and they just want a lovely cheese pizza just for them. No toppings, thank you.
I like mushrooms like on their own, like as a side dish or in like a topping for a steak. But on pizza, I would pass on that. And you make the point that you're ordering for your party, not just for yourself. Here's the thing, though. If you're coming to my party, you're going to enjoy my stuff.
That's true.
So I'm going to take the mushroom out of that equation.
Yeah,
Did you know mushrooms are the number 3 most popular topping in the United States for pizza?
Man, no accounting for taste. I'd drop kick mushrooms into the garbage.
I did not know that.
Without hesitation.
What I'm looking at.
Get the mushrooms out of here. Clayton's got it right on the YouTube comments. No mushrooms. They can leave if they don't like it.
What's
Amen.
The ranking where mushrooms is 3rd? Like what's around it?
Well, so you got just pepperonis 1, 2 is extra cheese.
Oh my God.
3 is mushrooms, 4 is onions, 5 is sausage.
Onion over sausage? Come
6
on.
black olives, 7 green peppers, pineapple 8, spinach at 9, and then literally just a plain cheese pizza is 10.
Extra cheese? Come on. Give me a break. No, sausage is my number 1. I would say pepperoni is my number 2. If we're just talking like your basic pizza toppings. I'll eat a meat lovers. I love a good meat lovers pizza. Pineapple, Hawaiian, yeah, always good.
Pineapple doesn't belong on pizza.
No, man. You get ham and pineapple. Oh yeah, get that salty and sweet going. Delicious. I love pineapple though. I like pineapple on anything, including pizza. That does it for One Gotta Go today. Well, wait. Which one did you kick out?
Mushrooms.
Okay. All on the same page on that one. Coming up on the other side of this timeout, we'll hear from Patrick Mahomes. QB1's coming up on 580 Sports Talk.
I'm Jim Chesko with you.
Brendan, Dan, and Spencer with you here on 580 Sports Talk. Thanks for hanging out with us today. Tim Fitzgerald is going to join us coming up next hour for the Wildcat Wrap-up, talking all things K-State. We've got, of course, K-State basketball coming up tonight as well, taking on Iowa State at Hilton Coliseum. By the way, I saw another book. DraftKings has K-State +8. We saw 7.5 earlier. I saw it at +8. I'm taking that tonight, man. I'm on the Cats to at least keep it close up at Hilton Coliseum. Maybe I'm letting my hate for Iowa State leak out a little bit too much, betting with my heart, not my head in that one. But we did promise you Patrick Mahomes, and that is what we are going to deliver. QB1 for your reigning Super Bowl champions took the podium earlier today. Let's hear what Patrick Mahomes had to say to reporters when he spoke to the media.
Patrick, Lamar Jackson just said in his Facebook, I don't like competing against you. So I'm going to ask you the same question. How do you like or not like competing against Lamar Jackson?
Yeah, no, it's challenging. The way he's able to just be a competitor and score the football, obviously, and then their entire team. I mean, it's a tall task. You got to go out there and play your best football, and if you make any mistakes, it seems like the game's going to go the other way. So we've been able to play in a couple games, not in a few years now, but I've admired watching him from afar and know that it's going to be a great challenge for us every time we go up against him.
Is there a type of challenge facing a guy like that who's at the high level this year?
Yeah, no, I mean, he's going to be the MVP for a reason. I mean, he goes out there, he leads his team, he scores, he runs, he throws, he does whatever it takes to win, and that's what the greats do. And like I said, it'll be a great challenge for our defense, but also a great challenge for our offense going against their defense. So it's going to take a full team effort if we want to find a way to get a win.
Are there parts of his game that you particularly appreciate?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that you like to see in other quarterbacks is how they improve every single year. And obviously, everybody talked about his running, but you can see how he's developed as a passer, throwing from within the pocket, arm angles, making the accurate throw in big situations and big moments. And that's what the great quarterbacks do. And he continues to get better and better every single year. And so I knew we were going to play in a lot of games like this as our career's gone on, and I'm sure this will be the first of many.
Patrick, do you ever, or have you ever over the last 5 years taken a step back just for the appreciation of the streak you're on of getting to this game every year?
Yeah, I mean, you do after the season. You're so motivated and focused on week in, week out, day in, day out, trying to find a way to get to the Super Bowl and obviously try to win it. But I do have an appreciation for where I ended up, the players that I have around me, the coaches that I have around me, and the organization that I'm in, and that we're lucky enough to be in this position. But that's stuff that you want to look at when you're done playing. So right now I'm just focused on today and how I can get better.
As a follow-up to that, other teams have drama, right? There's some drama down in Dallas, players sniping family members, all that. That never seems to happen here. Is that why do you think you guys are all on the same page where other teams maybe struggle with that? Is it Andy? Is it Clark? Is it you? Is it what? Why do we not ever see that seemingly?
Yeah, I mean, it's Coach Reid. I mean, the mindset that he comes into the building with every single day, the leadership that he has. He comes in and we're about ball. We're about having our brothers back, going in there and doing whatever we can to win, but at the same time love each other and get the best out of each other every single day, on and off the field. And that's kind of the culture that I got brought into, so I can't take claim to that. That's stuff that he had going for a long time.
Patrick, just with you and Lamar, 2005 was the first NFL Conference Championship with two black quarterbacks. Last year, you with Jalen, first in the Super Bowl. Now it's going to be first AFC Championship with two black quarterbacks based on all. Just with Lamar Jackson's criticism, the quarterback comments, stuff like that, is that something you look at and take into account of just how some people perceive other black quarterbacks versus how they perceive you?
I think so in a little bit, but I mean, to me, there never was criticism because you just cut the tape on and watch him play. I mean, dude won MVP like his first full year starting, and he was throwing the football, he was running the football, he was doing whatever it took to win. And so I think we started to break through that mold now, and the quarterbacks that came before us kind of set that standard, and we've been able to kind of keep rising the level to hopefully even higher standards, and hopefully the kids behind us do the same. But I'm glad to see that the level that he continues to grow and get better and better. But obviously, I don't want him to play great this weekend, but I am glad to see where he's gotten to.
Patrick, Coach Reid was asked about your connection with Travis, especially in the postseason. He said it was hard to explain why you guys connect the way that you guys do. So I'm going to give you a shot at explaining it. Why is it that you guys are able to connect so successfully, especially?
Yeah, I think it's just at the end of the day, we want to compete. We want to go out there and win. We don't care how it's done. We don't care if we have a lot of yards, a lot of touchdowns. We just want to win. And You can see that when you hear him talk. It's about everyone's success, not just his. And I respect that. And it's kind of, like I said, he was here before I got here. So I can see that from day one I stepped in the building. And so when you have a bunch of guys that really want to win no matter what it takes, and no matter who gets the shine, that's when you get the great football teams.
One other thing related to Travis, Andy also spoke about this, that all the stuff that he's had, the SNL stuff and Taylor, almost plays into his personality. I wonder what it's been like to be around that this year and sort of for you, but also what you think it's been like for him to have that heightened attention that way.
I mean, Travis has always been Travis. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, it's been cool to watch for me because, I mean, obviously he has all that attention, but he's just been himself the whole time. He's still Travis Kelce. He still will walk through the stadium and treat every single person like they're his best friend. And he's going to be like that in the locker room every single day. And so it hasn't been any different to me. I've come to the building, come to work every single day, and lucky enough that I have a lot of great players around me, and Travis is one of them.
Just looking back a couple months, I'm sorry, but what I don't think we ever spoke with you about what it was like seeing him on Saturday Night Live and what that said about him.
No, I was. It was really cool. I was sad I didn't get to make it. I was one of my best friends growing up. Bachelor party was that weekend, and so I was a groomsman in the wedding, so it'd been tough to tell him I couldn't go. But being able to watch that, I know it was a dream of his. He knows all the skits from guys that have been Saturday Night Live growing up, and he was always telling me ones from like before I was even born. I'm like, Trav, I'm not the same age as you, dude. I don't know what that is. He's definitely, it was something a goal of his to just be on the show, but to be able to host it, and he crushed it, man. I mean, that's something that hopefully longer down the line, if we'll keep hanging him on, that he'll be able to do more of that type of stuff after he's done playing football.
So Pat's going to go tomorrow too, guys. We'll just do the final three starting with Todd. Go, Todd.
I asked Andy about how you warded off frustration, what he did to help you work through it. He mentioned you being willing to teach and willing to work with the guys. Where does that come from, and why do you approach it that way?
Yeah, I mean, I think it just comes from the guys before me. I mean, Alex Smith is the prime example. I mean, he was playing great football at top level, and he was teaching me at the same time. And it's about just trying to make everybody better. We want to win every single week. That's just how it is in the NFL. But you're not going to. So all you can do is get better each and every week, win or loss. And the guys did that, and that's why we're sitting in this football game now, and we're going to try to do our best to try to win this game and get better for the Super Bowl after this.
Sam?
Patrick, what's just the challenge? I know you guys have done this before, but the challenging process of moving on from the emotional high of a playoff win and reach a hopes.
Yeah, I've learned it just from doing it, having those experiences. But I think your ultimate goal is to get to the Super Bowl, but it takes a day-by-day process, step by step. And I've just learned you celebrate, you have those emotions, and then you come in that Monday and you wipe it all clean and you go back to game planning again. And you really want to celebrate is you hope to have that parade, and that's when you can really celebrate. And I try to keep that in the back of guys' minds is, yeah, it was awesome. We won the game. Let's celebrate. We land off the plane. Now we're moving on to the next week.
Blair?
Patrick, most of your life, there's one franchise above all that dominated the NFL, the Patriots. And I think you've referred to it a couple of times, having Patriot fatigue. They're always there, right? Mm-hmm. Well, you've started on the path of the replacement team. I wonder if you relish that, how you feel about that, and what's out there.
Yeah, I mean, we still got a long ways to go. I mean, they did it for 20 years. And so all we can do is take it year in, year out, week in, week out, and every single day. I mean, it's something that that's the long goal, is to win that many championships and bring those titles to this organization. But all we can do is focus on the Ravens this week, and that's what we're trying to do.
Thanks, Ben.
Well, I, for one, am glad that the Chiefs will be focusing on the Baltimore Ravens. That is a good thing, considering they're playing each other coming up this weekend.
I am disappointed that they didn't ask him the hard-hitting questions. What it means to be truly honored, because Patrick Mahomes has received one of the highest honors any quarterback can receive. They named a Puppy Bowl participant after him.
Oh, man.
I saw you share that.
Let me guess. Patrick Mahomes.
Patrick Mabones is a hound mix from DeSoto, Iowa. He is a very good boy, and he is one of the participants in Puppy Bowl 20. Which is coming up on Super Bowl Sunday on the Animal Planet, as it has for the last 20. They've been doing this for 20 years.
That's crazy.
20 years of the Puppy Bowl.
All right. Did you see the other names that are involved?
We also have Bark Purdy and Snack Prescott this year.
Snack Prescott.
Snack Prescott is really good, and definitely what like the tabloids in Dallas would call him if he showed up to training camp 20 pounds overweight.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
I think Skip would call him that too. This is not a football name, but we have Guy Ferrari. He is very furry. I will give him credit for that. Yeah, these are good. I'm gonna have to dig through all these. Patrick Mahomes, that is a very good dog.
Yeah, Patrick Mahomes is an extremely good dog. I'm gonna throw him up on the YouTube stream real quick here. Pulled the picture. Oh, it's not letting me do it. Alas.
We have Team Fluff and Team Rough as the competitors. Have you ever watched it, Spencer?
Yeah.
I watch it
Not
religiously.
recently. I used to watch it all the time when I was a kid.
A huge part of my Super Bowl Sunday. There he is. There's Patrick Mahomes. You're looking at him instead of me. What an upgrade. I've made your day better, YouTube watchers. Patrick Mahomes.
A hound mix.
Look at
Good
those
for him.
Look at those ears.
Hope he gets adopted. How much do you think it costs to adopt Patrick Mahomes?
I'd drive to DeSoto, Iowa, wherever that is, right this second to go adopt Patrick Mahomes if I could.
I will tell you that DeSoto, Iowa. I thought you were going to say DeSoto, Kansas. I thought, dang, that's like real close. From where we are atop Huntoon Hill to DeSoto, Iowa, it is a 4-hour drive. It's in the Des Moines suburbs. That's not that bad.
No.
Right by West Des Moines and Ankeny. So, yeah, there you go. Near Waukee, where we were staying for the NCAA tournament. We've got to get to a break. We'll talk more Chiefs-Ravens coming up after this timeout on 580 Sports Talk.
Purple Wave Auction understands that
way home on 580 Sports Talk on this Wednesday afternoon. I'm Brendan Dworzinski. That's Dan Lucero. That's Spencer Dupuis. We're here with you until 6 o'clock today. Well, Spencer and Dan are. I'm taking off early because I've got the Washburn Basketball Coaches Show, 6 to 7 over on Country 106.9. Brett Ballard for the Washburn men and Matt Barrero, assistant coach for the Washburn women, will be joining us today. Washburn on the road the next couple of weekends. How about Hayes and Kearney one weekend and then Claremore and Tahlequah the next? Long couple of trips.
I know nothing about those, but they sound like great places for you to go, Brendan.
I have been to both Hayes and Kearney before. I've been to Hayes a number of times. It's 3 hours. It's straight west. Like it's just all I-70 the entire way. It's fine. Hayes is a fine place. I've eaten at the A&W and at the Freddy's there. It's fine. Have called multiple football games and basketball games in Hayes. It's fine.
I've had good experiences at the Wendy's right off of 70 there at Hayes. The only problem with it is that you have to go through Pan's Labyrinth of roundabouts to get anywhere in that town. And I got to tell you, I don't know what designer drugs the people who came up with the roundabout system right off of I-70 in Hayes. I don't know what they were on, but I hate it.
Ketamine.
I hate it.
Dude, it's terrible.
Hayes is a perfectly nice place.
Yeah.
I have nothing bad necessarily to say about its people or any of the places that I have been to, any of the venues I have been to while I have been there.
Mm-hmm.
Whoever designed the roundabout should be in prison.
Yeah, it's bad. The first time I was ever out there was for...
It discourages me from getting off the interstate in your town. I will get gas in Waukene instead.
I was there once, and I somehow missed most of that stuff. I went for Washburn Women's Hoops a few years ago, and then we did a Shrine Bowl out there. We've done... we did the 1A state championship game now 2 falls ago when St. Mary's won it all. Totally cool with Hayes. Driven through, stopped just for food on the way out further west before. Totally fine with Hayes. When Greg and I were there, though, for that state championship game, the 1A title game in 2022, we had just gotten our truck, which were the fine folks at Lewis Toyota here in town hooked us up. We have this work truck. Really nice Toyota Tacoma. And it was rainy and gross, and it was the first day we had taken it out for a trip, and we drove out there. I could not figure out the damn roundabouts. I couldn't figure it out. Then we pull into a gas station, and I pulled in on the wrong side, and I had to drive backwards to try to weave around. Oh, my God, it was a nightmare. I felt like the biggest idiot, too, because all these people who had been at the state championship game and are trying to either drive back to Inman or to St. Mary's and are about to get on their respective highways to get home are watching me drive like a moron around this BP right off the interstate. Oh my God.
I have similar stories with where the gas tank is.
Yeah.
So where my last place of work, they had the Ford, the newer minivan, like the vans.
Sure.
They had one of those. I have a Ford Edge. Before that, I had a Ford Escape. So I'm familiar with Fords. You would think Ford has a universal side the gas tank is on, because both of my cars were on the driver's side.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever I drove that car and got gas, it without a doubt, I pulled to the side because I Ford logo it when I'm looking down at the steering wheel. I pulled to the side that I think my car had it. So every single time, and I always looked like an idiot because sometimes I would get out and then go start putting the card in and then be like, oh, nope, it's on the other side.
There's a little arrow next to the gas tank icon, gasoline icon in your car that tells you what side of the car.
Yes, I do know that. But sometimes
it's just on autopilot. All right.
Sometimes the tick is also right there.
I was probably about your age when I got that fact cemented in my head, Spencer, but that is the thing that I do now when I am driving a new vehicle. I instinctively look if I need to get gas. All right, which side I'm going to pull up on so I don't look like a doofus in front of all these people.
What was it? I've been to Kearney once. I was there for Kearney in the fall. I've never been to Tahlequah or Claremore, though.
I haven't been to either of those places. I lived in West Central Nebraska, lived in North Platte, and did radio and covered high school and junior college sports there for 4 years. So I am intimately familiar with Interstate 80 and also very familiar with Kearney because, North Platte High would play Kearney and everything because it was the closest big high school.
And what are those, at least an hour apart?
It was 100 miles.
Jeez.
96, I think, exactly on Interstate 80 between North Platte and Kearney. And so I got to know those miles really well. Shout out to the bridge. Shout out to the Sky Bridge. Across
That's
I-80.
a museum, right?
It is. Like they've got some like history of the planes or something in there.
What it is.
I don't know exactly the name. It's just the bridge. I would drive past that and I never stopped. Never have checked it out. I did. I used to go to Kearney a lot. Like I'd go watch junior hockey. Shout out to the Tri-City Storm. Yeah, not a whole lot else I can give you about Kearney. Don't go to Amigos Kings Classic after a game for dinner. Don't go there. Whatever you do.
Oh,
bad experience.
Okay,
bad time.
Amigos off the list.
Amigos Kings Classic. It's like two things. It's tacos and burgers.
It's right on the main drag, isn't it?
Yes.
I remember driving past that.
Yes.
In fact, on the way to Cope Stadium this fall.
Yes, it's two things. It's like Travis Kelce in the Pfizer commercial. Two things at once. It's a burger place and a taco place.
Are either good?
One time I ordered one of each, and the next 24 hours did not go well for me.
Yeah,
it was bad time.
Yeah, we've all been there. We've all been there.
They're not my amigo. I can tell you what.
So we will have. I will be gone at 5 today, but Dan and Spencer will have you the rest of the way. Tomorrow we're going to have kind of an amalgamation of combinations.
What a great word.
Thank you.
There.
Yeah, I like to use PBS words now and again. We'll be off at 5 each of the next 2 days. So tomorrow and then Friday, because we've got the Cap City Classic girls tournament week for high school basketball.
That's right. And, it's a really cool event this year. The Capital City Classic features 4 of the city's 7 high school, 4 of the city's 8 high school programs are participating in this tournament. In a lot of recent years, that had not been the case. Teams would go, kind of all henny penny out and about, and you had a tournament at Shawnee Heights, you had a tournament in Lawrence, and Topeka team might go there. This year, we've got 4 teams, Topeka High, Topeka West, Washburn Rural, and Seaman participating in the Capital City Classic. And some of those other tournaments, like we thought that existed, turns out they don't.
Yeah.
So the Capital City Classic is kind of going to be where the action is in the Capital City this week. So we're going to have triple header coverage. We're going to do it pretty similar to how we covered the TIT last week, where we're going to have Thursday and Friday coverage. We're going to join the second game of the day in progress at 5 o'clock. Tomorrow, that's going to be Topeka High taking on the number 2 team in Class 6A, Wichita Heights. And we're going to have the 2 games after that. Seaman and Shawnee Mission West is the 3rd game. And then the night game, the late game, will be Topeka West facing Wichita South, who is the number 10 ranked team in Class 6A. So, it should be a fun night of basketball. We'll have then on Friday, we'll join one of the 2 consolation semifinals in progress, and we'll have the winner's bracket semifinals in full.
Yes, we're looking forward to some awesome high school basketball. A lot of fun teams, a lot of fun matchups coming up at the Cap City Classic. So tomorrow, it'll be Dan and Spencer. It'll be yours truly and Spencer. Yours truly coming from Hayes tomorrow. That's where Washburn will be. So we're going to have some fun. We'll have the whole crew with you one way or another tomorrow on 580 Sports Talk.
I got something before we get into our next topic.
Fire away.
So we talked about this yesterday, and the ACC released their Thursday-Friday schedule.
Yeah.
They just released their full schedules for all the teams, and this graphic just is the worst thing to look at ever now that they've expanded to 17 teams. It just looks too, minimized into a graphic. Brett McMurphy just tweeted it a couple minutes ago.
It's like a gigantic array. It's a mess. It is a whole mess.
Looks like a game board. Like if you're playing a board game.
Yeah, it looks like snakes and ladders.
But I could not focus to look at one team. It's just so hard because there's 17 on there.
It is very funny that they added 3 teams with the distinct knowledge that they're going to lose an odd number of teams at some point because they're going to get sued out the wazoo and have to backfill. It is very funny.
Incredibly, I think, is the furthest east team in the conference is at Boston College or is it Miami?
I think it's Miami.
Neither of those teams play. Boston College and Miami don't play No, that's a lie. Miami plays Cal week 8 or week 6. Miami is at Cal week 6.
Also, my geography was absolute garbage. Miami is one of the furthest west teams from the original the ACC going into this year. They're actually much further west than some cities. Boston College is definitely the furthest east.
Yeah, they don't play in the California schools, but they do have to go to SMU week 12. Yeah, some of these matchups are just cursed, man.
Yeah, this whole thing is gross.
Virginia, SMU. That's a conference game. Ugh. Those teams play in the same league for sports. So do Cal and Pitt.
Cal Pitt. What do you call that rivalry?
The Cal Pitt game.
The Cal Pitt game.
Virginia Tech, Stanford.
Come on. That's a smart game, though. Those smart teams. A lot of engineers involved there. Oh my God, what a joke!
Yeah, they gotta pass around like a version of the Commander-in-Chief's trophy that's just for the nerd schools in this league. Cal, Duke, Tech, Georgia Tech,
UVA,
Virginia, and Stanford. Yes, they should have the nerd school trophy.
I would love that. I'd make this league a little more exciting. I'm just going to tell you right now, just to get in front of it here. When the Big 12 releases its schedule and we find out how many like Friday games that they play, I'm already going to be mad. Like I'm mad at them already, just so you know.
Prematurely upset about K-State playing on another Friday night or KU playing on another Friday night.
Awful.
I already hate it.
We've gone 3 years in a row at least, if not 4, that KU is open on a Friday night, and I hate it. And we hear from you guys all the time how much everyone hates the Friday night games. They are not for anyone.
No, nobody likes them.
That's the worst.
Has Washburn ever opened on a Thursday?
Yes, Washburn always opens on a
Yes,
Thursday.
And in fact, next year, a couple times recently, Washburn's played 2 Thursday games to open the season. This year, that was the case, in fact.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I'm looking at the schedule.
Next year, Washburn plays just 1 Thursday to open the year because the calendar is all goofed up next year. Is the way the days fall, like week 1 is going to be, I believe, August 31st. Totally jacks up the calendar, so everyone gets 2 bye weeks. It's weird. So for the Division II level, it's moved back a little earlier than normal. It's a whole thing. But yeah, 1 Thursday game next year. I believe it's the opener against Emporia, if I'm not mistaken.
That would be correct looking right now.
Thursday night football to open the season, biggest rivalry game, which on one hand is cool. On one hand, like, I'd rather have the game mean something more a little bit later in the season, but hey, beggars can't be choosers. All right, I did want to touch on this real quick, sort of an accumulation of a lot of points we've brought up over the course of the show today. All the different parts of this Baltimore offense versus the Chiefs defense. And the Chiefs have a good defense. And I want to make sure I make that clear after talking a little bit about it earlier on today. And I was like, I'm worried about this run defense. Now, the Chiefs defense is good and is full of good players and is very well coached. We know all of those things. But if there's one part of the Baltimore offense, like one position group specifically, that you think is of the most concern for the Chiefs, if you were Bill Belichick and this was we've got to eliminate some part of their game plan, that's our defensive strategy, what are you trying to eliminate? And the caveat I'm putting on this question, you can't just say stop Lamar Jackson, because A, you can't, and B, duh.
Yeah,
that's like no Patrick Mahomes as Big Chief. Like, yeah, stop the MVP, you'll probably win. I agree.
Yeah, you could say stop him as a runner because he is so good as a runner.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a hard thing to do because just when you think you've got him behind the 8 ball, that's when he skitters away. But like you mentioned, like it's important to note, we brought up the numbers about the Chiefs rush defense earlier in the show.
Mm-hmm.
They're 23rd in the league in rush success rate, but they're 3rd in success rate against the pass. What do you think that makes them overall in terms of success rate as a defense?
Because it's what against the run?
23rd against the run, 3rd against the pass.
14.
Yeah, I would say like low teens, like 12.
4th.
Wow. Okay.
4th.
Still giving the run too much credit, apparently.
Yes, that's exactly what's happening.
Okay.
You do. We do give the running game a little too much credit. Just like this. Here, the Chiefs rushing attack. They're 28th in the league as a rushing team offensively, 7th with the pass, much closer to their ranking as a passing team. They're 12th overall in passing success rate. So, like, or offense success rate.
Okay.
So we can overstate the importance, I think, of stopping the run. But I think also in January, maybe that does change a little bit because the conditions are different and possession is more valuable. You want to take care of the ball because every possession could be the one that swings the game. So teams maybe are a little bit more conservative and do want to run the ball a little bit more. So for me, I think what will be an interesting matchup is the tight ends, particularly if Mark Andrews does return. And we kind of talked about this earlier in the show, but likely emerging as a dude this year for Baltimore while Mark Andrews was on the shelf. We haven't really seen what it's going to look like when Baltimore deploys those two. And again, we're only in the might play nexus with Mark Andrews right now.
Yeah.
It only feels like he's going to play. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe if he does play, he's on a pitch count. Maybe he only gets 20, 25 offensive snaps.
Sure.
And they're not that impactful. But we don't know what that's going to look like. And so there might have to be some adjusting on the fly to the multi-tight end set that we could see with those two on the field.
I am in the same camp that I think it's the tight end problem. And I want to give some respect to the wide receiver core for this team, especially Zay Flowers, because he feels like the guy who, I don't want to say like the Gabe Davis type. I think Zay Flowers is already going to be a better player than Gabe Davis, but the kind of guy who just, if he gets going, if he gets hot, you think, oh, he's going to torch us because he's got that run after catch ability. He's got decent hands. He's already a solid route runner. I mean, if he was like 6'1", he's a top 10 pick this past year in all likelihood. 6'2", maybe. He's getting picked way higher than in the early 20s. So I want to give some respect to him, and he's got the home run threat ability over the top as well. Mark Andrews is one of your best tight ends in the NFL. He top 3? Kelsey, Kittle, Andrews?
Yeah.
You could argue he's top 3 at least?
Yeah, I'd comfortably top 5. I think Sam Laporta made a pretty good case this year.
Yeah, no kidding.
Second team All-Pro.
Yeah,
but no, Andrews at his healthiest, comfortably top 5, and probably our perception of him is affected by the fact that he, for a long time, was the only reliable pass catcher for that team. The only thing that made the passing attack work.
Yeah. So you've got him back, and he probably won't be 100% if he plays. And maybe you're right. Maybe he is on a pitch count. If he's able to go full bore, well, okay, that's concerning, obviously. But 2 tight end sets are becoming, and really they have been for a while since the Patriots were doing this with both Hernandez and Gronkowski. It is really hard to man up against 2 tight end sets because you can, especially 2 who can actually catch the ball. Like if you're running out there with, a tight end who can catch and Mercedes Lewis, like, okay, that's a little bit different. That's essentially playing with 6 offensive linemen. But if you're going out there with 2 guys who can actually catch, who can actually stretch the field either horizontally or vertically, that makes it a lot more difficult because it's hard for smaller cornerbacks or even smaller safeties to match up on a Mark Andrews. It makes it hard when you have to commit, all right, well, we have to focus on the run because they're going to show us some run looks, but they can pass out of those as well. They'll have these RPO tags. That, to me, is the biggest issue, is that you're going, yes, there's always the threat of the run. Yes, Zay Flowers is dangerous in the passing game. Yes, Lamar can throw as well as anybody. But having 2 tight ends and being able to use them either in tandem or substituting one for the other, that's something that's been a cheat code for offenses for quite a while. And right now, Baltimore has, I think, easily the best 1-2 tight end punch in the league. Is anyone better? Anyone close?
I can't give you anybody close.
I can't either.
I'd love to tell you Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft, but I don't think you can go with 2 rookies right off the bat with the way that Andrews and likely have played. For you, Spencer, what is the position group for Baltimore that you think gives you the most concern or the Chiefs should be the most concerned about?
I think it's the receiving core because they're deep.
Mm-hmm.
Like all of a sudden out of nowhere, if Devin Duvernay's playing, he could just catch a ball down the field, or Nelson Aguilar. He could, Rashad Bateman. They don't make catches and long catches often, but I feel like it's a sneaky thing. Also, the fact that they use a fullback sometimes could be sneaky in goal line.
Mm-hmm.
Like
true.
Can also cause you to, when we were talking earlier about an extra heavy on the field for the Chiefs, an extra big body, if the Ravens go 6 offensive linemen, go to heavier packages like the Bills did last week. The Ravens don't have to do that. They can just bring out Patrick Rickard, and he's the 6th offensive lineman with how he blocks on the move.
If I remember correctly, he was moving around in training camp.
Yeah, they had him training a little bit at guard, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, so you could just pull him in randomly, pull him into the offensive line, and he could be another big guy there. I also, I think if you look at all three level, or I guess, tight ends, receivers, and running backs, there's some intrigue with Gus Edwards and Justice Hill too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I said this the other day. Justice Hill's playing the best football he's played in his NFL career. So
I can't just pick one.
No, I mean, it's tough. This is a really good team. I've said it already. I think they're the best team in the NFL. That's going to be tough for the Chiefs. It's not impossible by any means. I think it's definitely doable for the Chiefs, but it is hard to pick a take it away thing for this team because they've got so many things they can throw at you. What is wrong with you is coming up on the other side of this timeout. We'll also talk to Tim Fitzgerald this hour right here on 580 Sports Talk. Maybe a new weekly winner, shall we? And what is wrong with you here on 580 Sports Talk? 2 new stories going head-to-head today, brought to you, as always, by our good friends at Top City Metal Supply. They cut the metal you need to your specifications. What does that save? Well, your time, your money, and your material. So never settle when it comes to metal with Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard, halfway between Frito-Lay and Forbes Field. Our winner for the week so far, the guy who went to the elementary school open house, packing in his waistband, unholstered, he's wearing sweatpants, playing basketball, and he Plaxico burst himself. Do people still know what that means? Like, if you told a kid today, like, oh, he did the Plaxico burst, like, do you think they would know what that meant?
I think people younger than me, maybe not.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
maybe somebody 20. I think
might be a washed reference.
Because that was
I would
2008
say
when that happened.
21, 22. Because I mean, I feel like if you're 20, you don't necessarily know. You were not young. You were too young to realize what happened.
Yeah, not to make everyone feel old, but if you're turning 20 this year, you were born in 2004.
Yeah.
So yeah, you probably don't know. You probably have to be several years older than that. Wow, awesome, sick. Love to hear that. All right, 2 new stories going head to head today. I'm going to go first. We've had a number of stories of guys who committed bank robberies, went to jail, got out, and then went to rob banks again. Guys who just loved the grind.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we've got a fun twist on that old trope today. 2 years ago, Mohammed Warku allegedly walked into a bank, handed over a polite demand note that said, "Give me the money, please. Thank you." And he walked out with cash. He was shortly thereafter arrested and charged. On Friday, though, a federal jury acquitted him of bank robbery, agreeing with his defense that whatever he did, it wasn't threatening enough to meet the legal standard for bank robbery. Essentially, they said, all right, he was too polite. Like, this can't be a robbery. He was too nice about it. But then 3 days later on Monday, after being released from custody, Warku allegedly walked into another bank and handed over an equally gentlemanly note. Quote, "Please give me the money. I'll pay it back soon." And again, walked out with cash. Now Warku is back in custody. On Tuesday, federal prosecutors filed a new complaint against him, this time charging him with both bank robbery as well as bank theft, one of which requires proof that money was taken by means of intimidation, one which does not. At an initial appearance, prosecutors asked that Warku be held in custody pending trial. U.S. Magistrate Judge Gabriel Fuentes scheduled the detention hearing for today. This happened in Chicago, by the way, at the Fifth Third Bank in Little Village back in 2021. And then the second one happened at the Citibank location in Lincoln Park.
Love a good little recidivism, don't we, folks?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
System's working.
Didn't learn your lesson.
Especially because, like, dude, you got away with it. You made it out. You bungled this so badly. You didn't. I mean, you got in trouble because you had to be in jail for 2 years, but like it could be a lot worse. People go to jail for 50 years for robbing banks sometimes. So you got lucky. Don't do it again. And then it took him 3 days.
3 whole days. All right, my story. We're going to meet 3 drunk morons in Quint, West Ontario, Canada, on a walk on a snowy night out. One of them decided he was going to pick up a planter and throw it through the glass window of a local business. But here's the thing about walking on snow. It's slippery.
Yeah.
And as our YouTube listeners or YouTube viewers will be able to see, our guy slipped. Our guy lost his footing and the planter went down right on top of him. Did his buddies hang around to help him? No, they did not. There he is. You can see on the YouTube screen, he is covered in soot.
He's
covered
dead.
in dirt. He's covered in the contents of the planter. One of his friends has already left the premises. The other is just standing there, probably calling him a hoser or whatever Canadian insult you want. You could say, truthfully, that the man soiled himself.
Boo.
Yeah, not my best work. But anyway, yeah, that's all it is. We got a drunk guy who's going to commit an act of vandalism, but didn't have sure enough footing. A, because it was snowy. B, because he was liquored up. And he ended up with the contents of a planter all over himself.
That's really funny.
Yeah, simplistic. Just a little bit of slapstick for your Wednesday. What is wrong with you?
Man, I love that they just walked away. That's awesome. There's video of this. I got to watch this dude fall. So he kicks the thing first, then picks it up.
And he's like, oh, yeah, I could pick this up. It moves.
And yeah, his buddy just says, nope, I'm out. He straight up runs away. And then his other buddy just kind of slowly kind of meanders for a bit.
He picks it up. He goes for the windup and everything and then just can't bring it back around.
That's awesome. That rules. That is very slapsticky. Oh, my gosh. All right, who's got the win for today?
It's a hard one.
Yeah, we've got 2 very different styles of story. One that's just someone who's very dumb with the slapstick element to it. The other one, committing a crime after you got off from committing a different crime, which also happened to be the same crime.
Because I think it's because he wasn't threatening enough. Like, that's all in itself makes it an interesting story.
That reminds me of the story of the late Rashae Caldwell, played wide receiver for the Patriots and maybe 1 or 2 other teams, who tried to buy drugs on the internet from overseas, and he got bad drugs. Like they didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And when he went to court over it, because you can't do that, the judge essentially ruled like, hey, you were so stupid. You didn't even buy good drugs. Like, these are worthless. Like, you're just an idiot. And they let him go free. That's what this reminded me of.
I think Dan's wins today.
What's your vote?
Yeah, I'm going to go with a little more harmless. As Vance points out in the YouTube comments, like, there was a totally legal way that our guy could have gone about asking for money that he would pay back from bank. That's called a loan. I've asked for one of those from a bank before. You know what I didn't do? Wave a gun.
Yeah, no kidding.
Like, just, ask him for a loan. I mean, I know, lenders can be predatory at times, but I bet you would have gotten a loan, roughly the equivalent of whatever they had in the counter. So, yeah, I'm going to go with the drunk guy. It's just a funnier story to me. Guy loses his footing, ends up covered in soil.
Does that take down our weekly winner?
I don't think so.
No.
Nah, man, he shot himself. He did the Plexico Burris.
It's going to be really hard to beat.
That is our winner for the third day in a row. The guy who shot himself in the leg at an elementary school open house while playing basketball. Brought to you by Top City Metal Supply here on What Is Wrong With You. Metal cut to order when you need it. And that's Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard. The Wildcat Wrap-up with Tim Fitzgerald is coming up next on 580 Sports Talk.
Big Kansas State victory.
It's always a big Kansas State victory when we're joined by Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com here on 580 Sports Talk. Go find all of Fitz's work and his whole crew's work at GoPowerCat.com. It's part of the 24/7 Sports Network. You can also find some fantastic and continuing to grow video content from the GoPowerCat crew over on YouTube. Just search GoPowerCat. That's where you can find them there. And, of course, you can find Fitz on Twitter at LifeOfFitz is his handle there. What's going on, Fitz? How you been?
I'm just chilling out right now because I got a game to worry about tonight. I'm hanging out. I'm currently on my bed with two dogs. Suck it, WW.
I was going to say, I wish we had dogs here. That would, if Dude and Daphne ever want to come hang out at the station, they're more than welcome to.
Dude would be great. He loves everyone. Daphne would be scared of absolutely everything. every single thing.
Well, Fitz, you mentioned coming up tonight, there is a game for Kansas State taking on the Iowa State Cyclones. Right now, at 4-1 in Big 12 play, it doesn't matter who you've played, to be able to stack wins like that for K-State, that is a big deal. If K-State were able to get a win tonight in a hostile environment as a 7.5, 8-point underdog, according to Vegas, would you feel any differently about this team in a positive way if they can pull off the win?
Yeah, I would. They almost did it at Tech. They did it at West Virginia, which we're now seeing the Mountaineers win home games. But, Hilton is special. I mean, you can't argue against that. There is a thing such as Hilton Magic. They win a lot of good games up there, and they're incredible fans. It's going to be a great environment. But this starts a 7-game stretch against 6 ranked teams. That gets you through 12 games. That's 2/3 of the Big 12 schedule. So this is literally the heart of the schedule. This is the testing ground for K-State. And they've got that cushion now at 4-1. where they can struggle a little bit in here. I'm not saying they will, but even if they stink it up and go 2-5 in the stretch, they come out of it at 500 in the conference. This is a big time. So if 2-5 gets you at 500, stealing a win at Iowa State or stealing a win anywhere else in this conference against any opponent is huge. And if you can come out of this stretch 4-3, and all of a sudden you're 8-4, 2/3 through the conference, and you're on to something. This is a big game. This is a huge opportunity because let's not lie. Houston's incredibly tough at home, and that's going to be a rugged test for this K-State team on Saturday.
We obviously don't know because we don't have enough data points to, do a full bracketology or bracket layout or anything like that. And I understand that. But based on Fitz, what you project the rest of this season to look like right now, do you think K-State's a tournament team?
Yeah, I do. I would feel really good about the quality of tournament team they were once they cut down on these turnovers. That's amazing. They almost won at Tech with 18 turnovers, and then they won at home back-to-back game with 17 each in those games. So apparently 18 is the too far because they lost for 1 point, one less turnover. They might win. But that's still way too high. And they've got to get that down around 12. I've asked Jerome Tang specifically about it. And, I think he mentioned either 12 or 11 or fewer, and they haven't been there much in conference play at all. They were lower against UCF and WVU to open the season. Those were two kind of comfortable wins. But if they can get it down to 12 or fewer turnovers, this team's going to be competitive with absolutely everyone, any place they go play.
Is the turnover issue the biggest issue you have with the offense, or the biggest thing you feel needs to get corrected? Because if you polled, for example, K-State Twitter, I think 80% of people would say, stop letting Tyler Perry play hero ball at the end of games. I think that's probably the number one response you would get. But is it turnovers to you that's the biggest issue right now?
Yeah, it is. And that's simply because they don't have a true point guard on the floor most of the time. Tyler Perry's an off guard. Cam Carter's an off guard. Cam has had 12 turnovers in the last 2 games combined. And, you're getting those kind of turnovers from your guards, and, the other guys may be better with the ball, but he's missing a lot of shots, which are basically like turnovers. So you're just not as productive as you need to be from those two. The recruiting didn't go the way they wanted in a few areas, and then, they get someone they really like to be there, and now he's injured too. So it's just a frustrating cycle for K-State, but these are their guys. I noticed they put Day-Day Ames in a little bit earlier against Oklahoma State. They're going to have to get him on the floor a little bit more. He's got some of those point guard instincts you need, but he had maybe the worst turnover, just turned it over at midcourt when challenged by a defender. So that's a lesson a young point guard got to learn in front of everyone.
Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com is our guest on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. This is the Wildcat Wrap-up on 580 Sports Talk. We do it every Wednesday at this time. Check out Fitz and his staff's outstanding work at GoPowerCat.com, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. You can find Fitz on Twitter at Life of Fitz. Jerome Tang's playing with the rotation a little bit and working some guys in. RJ Jones had hardly played, hit a big shot late against Baylor, played a lot more as a result in the Oklahoma State game. Jarrell Colbert was in and out. He's been more consistently in the last handful of games. Dorian Finister's kind of settled in as the 6th man. In the end, where do you think the rotation settles at? Do you think ultimately Tang wants to go 9 deep, or would he be more comfortable going 8 or even 7 deep overall?
He usually likes 8, but I think he'd go to 9 with the right guys. And, maybe he goes a little bit deeper than that if, so like a Manning or a Rich kind of steps up in practice and there's a certain matchup in a game that really works for them. I think he's going to shuffle guys. Yeah, I think we're going to see him shuffling guys a lot more than he had done last season, just to try to keep people fresh. And when you're fresh, you're, probably less likely to have a fatigue mistake. And I think that's just the course you're going to take, because this is an incredible journey through this conference, and everyone will go through it. And, I think that's maybe what's catching up to Kansas is the lack of depth. Now we're seeing K-State try to delve into their bench a little bit more and get those guys ready. He's got some young guys that just need to learn some lessons, and it's hard to find the time to do that, but he's doing it.
In addition to not turning the ball over quite as often, what does a K-State win at Hilton Coliseum tonight look like in your mind? How does Kansas State go in there and walk out with a win against this Iowa State team that may or may not have their best guy, arguably, in Taman Lipsey?
Yeah, this team is completely driven by defense. And look, last year's team was great with defense, and, they were tough to score on. But everyone knew that what Marquise Noel and Keontae Johnson and all those guys were doing together offensively was something really special and magical. And, what Marquise did in the postseason was unbelievable. The fact that Coach Tang has come back now and is winning without that kind of playmaking point guard is impressive. But, again, defense is the constant. It's the old cliche that defense travels. You don't just play it at home. You can play it on the road. They're going to have to be really good defensively. And these next two games, they've absolutely got to close out possessions. They cannot let these teams get offensive rebounds. Houston in particular, they throw it up there. I call it Frank Martin ball. Throw it up on the rim, go get it, and get a follow shot that's a lot easier. It can be effective, but it can also be stopped.
Moving forward, if there's something that is going to limit this team's ceiling, what do you think is the largest area of concern? Is it the depth? Is it the turnovers? Is it the lack of a true point guard? If there is something that you are still at this point concerned that Kansas State may not be able to overcome and that may keep them from really staying in the fight for a Big 12 championship this season, what would that factor be?
Well, Jerem Tang himself says, to be successful in March, you have to have veteran guards. He has some veteran guards, but they don't necessarily fill all the needs you need from your guards in terms of, again, turnovers, playmaking, consistent shooting, which I think everyone can agree. K-State thought they had that with Tyler Perry, but he's just not been the same player, and I don't know if it's the added role of point guard that's distracting him, the up to level of defenses he's taking, or he's just kind of got himself in a shooting funk that he can't get out of. I thought he did get out of it a while back, but he just slipped right back in. This team's got some limitations, but I'll say this: if they don't turn the ball over, and Tyler Perry and Cam Carter are hitting shots, along with Arthur Kaluma, who's just been a revelation. This kid's playing out of his mind. They're going to beat a lot of teams, and they're going to go deep into March.
Tim Fitzgerald, our guest here, GoPowerCat.com for his weekly appointment. Tim, moving over to women's hoops here for K-State, a big win on the road in Baylor on Sunday. Tale of two halves, really, defensively. They gave up 39 points in the first half, but only 16 to get the 58-55 win. Obviously missing Lee, but they got a trio of players that were able to score 16. 8-0 in the conference. How do you see them faring without Lee a little bit down the road?
I tell you, brother, I thought that'd be a game they'd lose. You go on the road, play at the 13th ranked teams, home court. I believe neither the men or women Baylor teams had lost on their new home court, which is a pretty cool facility. So to go down and get that done and to come back from 9 down at halftime and just really buy in. They were so good defensively, but every time there was a timeout or a break, it's like Jeff Mittie did something for his team that made them more effective, whether it was a play drawn up, a switch of defense, a switch of personnel. He put his team in such a good position to win in the second half. And I watched that game and I was just blown away by how good of a point guard, how calm she is, what good decisions Serena Sundell makes. I've watched her before, but now with Lee out, it was just really obvious that she just took over kind of the mental leadership of that team. And they were bought in. They played an incredible second half to get that win.
Fitz, I wanted to bring up, speaking to the point about the women's team and just how unbelievable they've been recently, but really just sort of generally K-State athletics right now. I think it was your old pal Riley Gates who brought it up on Twitter the other day, who said that in his belief right now is the best it's ever been for K-State in terms of coaching-wise, winners for football, men's basketball, and women's basketball. Is there another stretch that's even close to right now with how well Jeff Mittie's doing with the women, Jerome Tang and Chris Kleiman, obviously?
No, you go back to when Deb Patterson had women's basketball going. I think the men were struggling, and that's why they were selling out the arena. It was, a more enjoyable brand. Throughout the Bill Snyder era, he overlapped with Lon Kruger. Lon left. You had some good teams with Dana Altman, but just look at the spiral they went into. And I don't think you really need to look too far back before that for football success. If you even go to Vince Gibson, it wasn't that great, but I don't know. But add in, baseball, they're going to be nationally ranked and considered a really top team in the Big 12. And the way Jason Mansfield, the volleyball program ended its season was unreal. And how they didn't get in the NCAA tournament still blows me away. But that is on the watch list for next season. K-State volleyball could absolutely be building a monster, and this guy knows how to do it. We'll see if he can get the players to Manhattan, but definitely he's done it in basketball, so it's possible.
A few more questions for Tim Fitzgerald, GoPowerCat.com on the Wildcat Wrap-up as Fitz joins us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline here on 580 Sports Talk. I was just about to ask about baseball, Fitz. They're appearing in preseason top 25 polls, which are starting to come out. They had 3 preseason all-conference selections as the Big 12 announced those earlier today. They've got a couple of guys that are being considered top draft prospects going into this year. When was the last time there was anything remotely like this kind of buzz for K-State baseball?
Yeah, you probably have to go back to that 2013 season that they did win the Big 12. And they had some really good players, some guys that, spent some time in the minors and the majors even. But this team is loaded. It's so hard to do nowadays. I mean, you basically have always had the transfer portal for baseball. And players would pack up and leave, and they didn't have to. It was just a mess, And on top of that, players sign and then get drafted and never show up. It's so hard to manage a roster in baseball, and you don't even have full scholarships. You can't even offer enough scholarships to have the full depth you need, which is absurd. It needs to be addressed. But Pete Hughes, you can tell his players like him because they come back. They come back and they want to play for him. And, sure, they've had some transfers, but some dudes came back that had other opportunities. And I think that says a lot about where this program is right now.
Fitz, I'm a little bit late to the party on this one. I want to go back to men's basketball for a moment because I didn't get to chat with you last week. But after K-State beat Baylor at home in that thriller, low-scoring overtime thriller, do you get as much pleasure watching the team you cover beat Scott Drew as I do watching KU and K-State beat Scott Drew?
I've grown to like Scott Drew. It's a weird dynamic. It's brothers out there, they absolutely love each other. You get in the game and, they're barking and then after the game, they had a prayer circle, with both teams.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an interesting dynamic. But Scott Drew is 0-3 against his former protege, Jerome Tang. And I think that's funny. And plus, there's no return trip this year because of the unbalanced schedule. That was the only regular season matchup between K-State and Baylor was up here, and K-State got it. So it's interesting. But at some point, we're going to have to stop and really discuss the impact Scott Drew's coaching tree is having on college basketball. So it's really impressive. And I think it'll only continue. I think there's some other head coaches that are in waiting down there that, are waiting for their shot. And I think they'd be good head coaches.
Tim Fitzgerald is the publisher of GoPowerCat.com. Make sure you go subscribe, be a VIP at 24/7. It is 100% worth it for all the best insight into everything going on with K-State athletics. Also, make sure you go follow Fitz on Twitter, where his handle is @LifeOfFitz. We appreciate the time as always, Fitz. Enjoy the game coming up tonight. Names.
Thank you, boys. Great to talk to you.
That is Tim Fitzgerald from GoPowerCat.com for this week's edition of the Wildcat Wrap-up. I'm excited. I'm jumping on K-State tonight. I'm not money line. I'm not taking K-State outright, but you're giving me 8 points for this K-State team. I know it's a tough place to play. I get it. I know K-State's got offensive issues, but numbers like K-State to keep it close.
I need to know if Lipsy's out there for warm-ups.
Fair.
That would be, if Lipsy doesn't warm up, then I think I might be with you.
Keep the apps open so the line doesn't move too much
Exactly.
right before you place the bet. I'm on my way to the Washburn Basketball Coaches Show. Dana and Spencer have you the rest of the way, and they'll lead off the 5 o'clock hour with headlines coming up on 580 Sports Talk.
Let's get it. Final hour of the day here on 580 Sports Talk. It's a two-man show the rest of the way. Dan Lucero, Spencer Dupuis holding it down with you. Brendan Dworzinski after the Washburn Coaches Show at Skinny Sports Bar and Grill. That starts at 6 o'clock over on our sister station, Classic Country 106.9. Glad you're hanging out with us. However you are consuming the program today, 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online, worldwide at 580WIBW.com, or on the YouTube stream, our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk. Check us out there. Check us out on our Twitter. We're streaming on Twitter, 580 Sports Talk. I'll be damned if I ever call it that other thing, Spencer. I don't know about you, but I know that website's called something else now. My response to that is no, it's not. That website is Twitter.
Well, I think the people have uproar maybe or something, but at one point everything redirected to it.
Oh yeah,
and now it's back to Twitter.
Yeah. You still type in, like I have it open right now. It's got that stupid logo, stupid X logo up in the corner, but my browser, the address bar says twitter.com/home.
I feel like it didn't used to.
Were you a big TweetDeck guy?
In college, yes, for our sports.
Yeah.
When I cover games, I'd use TweetDeck.
Incredibly.
Which they've killed off.
Yes.
No, it's in the premium.
Yes, they make
now.
you pay for it, and I'll be damned if I'm giving Elon Musk any money.
Can I just
he
say
got enough.
Can I just say, rebrand it as you will, Elon, but please don't change it, the URL to x.com, because
yeah, then I gotta have some uncomfortable questions. You check my internet history.
You ever
X, huh? Interesting.
Do you ever say I saw that on X or send?
No, I've never in my life. No, that's exactly the point.
It used to. There was a point in time where if you shared a tweet with somebody, it would go. I don't know if it redirected to the website at Twitter, but it would say share when you shared a link and you put it somewhere. It would say x.com/ blah blah blah, and you'd always have to double check. You're like, am I? Am I pulling a link?
Yeah, I'm not opening something from X. No, absolutely not. But yeah, check us out because we do stream the video on Twitter. So if you have Twitter up on your desktop, you can just go to our account, 580 Sports Talk. You can stream it from Twitter. You can stream it from the front page of our website, 580WIBW.com.
That's a new feature this week.
There's lots of things. There's lots of ways that you can consume the show. But however you're doing it, we appreciate you doing it. You can interact with us on the program. You tweet at us. You can X at us. You can tweet at us at 580 Sports Talk. We see those.
You can X us?
You can X us.
What would, if he does
change
change
if it was called X, what would you call it? No, use your tweets.
Yeah.
So I haven't updated the app on my phone in 5 months. I've got an iPhone. I'm sure many of our listeners have iPhones. Some of you got Android. It's probably the same deal where you have the little badge tells you how many apps you have that you need to update, and you go through and you update them. Or if you're my wife, you don't update them, and that number gets to 36, and I see that on your phone, and I get hives. I break out in hives if you have a badge number that high. I'm inbox 0 guy.
Me too.
Yeah, I don't like having a badge on my phone. I have to clear the notification. I don't like having that little red circle with a number, and I sure as hell don't like that number to be very high.
So I don't know where or how, but somehow in my personal email account on Gmail, somewhere over the years, and I can't figure out, I've spent time looking for it. I have 13 unread messages somewhere, and even if I select all, it doesn't go away. So it's forever 13.
That's tough. Nah, that would drive me nuts.
I don't know if that's
I'd have to delete the app and reinstall it.
I've done that before and it doesn't.
Oh, yeah. I'd have to. Well, I'd have to go to notification. I have to go to you can go to the settings and you just turn off notifications for that app. It'll go away.
Yeah,
that'll do it. Yeah, I'd have to do that.
It's been sitting like that for 4 or 5 years.
But anyway, my larger point, when you go to the app store and you get the little badge and it says how many apps you need to update, and I go through and I update every single one of them, except I will not replace Twitter. So it still looks like Twitter.
Still have the Twitter icon?
I still have the Twitter icon.
The blue bird?
Still got the blue bird. Still got the bird house for home. Still called tweets. Now,
one day it's just not going to work.
Yeah, well, it already mostly doesn't. The search function can't do it. Can't search for a tweet on my app anymore. The search function is useless. But that is a small sacrifice. Not have that ugly black X on my phone anywhere. As often as I use the app, I should probably update it to have full functionality for the app. But I can live without having the search on my phone. Anything, honestly, to get me to use it on my phone less, probably a good thing.
There you go.
Probably at the end of the day would be a good thing for me. But anyhow, thank you again for hanging out with us here on 580 Sports Talk. We got you up until 6 o'clock. K-State basketball on the air tonight, 7 o'clock pregame, 8 o'clock tip from Hilton Coliseum in Ames as Kansas State tries to stay atop the Big 12 conference. They take on Iowa State tonight, 8 o'clock tip, 7 o'clock pregame on the K-State Sports Network here on 580 WIBW and FM 104.9. Coming up this hour, we got a little more Chiefs audio for you, and we're going to hear from Isaiah Pacheco, who did not practice today. He's going to talk about that. Doesn't sound like it's that big a deal. We're also going to hear from some other players. We may hear from Justin Reed. We may hear from Chris Jones. A bunch of players spoke at the podium today. They get more players to talk at the podium for AFC Championship week. And we're going to hear from a few of those a little bit later on in this hour. But we are going to start the 5 o'clock hour, as we do every day on the program, with our 580 Sports Talk headlines. And we're going to start with that participation report for practice today. We'll start with the home team, the AFC's number 1 seed, the Baltimore Ravens. They had 2 players out of practice today. Wide receiver Tylan Wallace, who's pretty far down the depth chart, punt returner for them. He did not practice with a knee injury. Kevin Zeitler, veteran guard, got a rest day today, vet rest day for Zeitler. He did not practice. 3 players limited for the Ravens. Linebacker Delshawn Phillips with a shoulder injury. Cornerback Rock Ya-Sin with a knee injury. And cornerback Marlon Humphrey, in his return to practice, was limited with a calf injury. Mark Andrews practiced in full, coming back from his ankle injury that cost him a big chunk of the regular season. The thought when he got hurt was that it was a season ender.
Yeah,
and then
I remember that.
Yeah, and then it was, well, maybe he could come back if the Ravens reached the AFC Championship game. Well, here they are, and here he is, back at practice and trending towards playing on Sunday.
And most people were like, the Ravens won't make the AFC Championship.
I think
at the time.
Yeah, there were a lot of people at the time said, well, that's kind of far-fetched. And then the more the season wore on, the more it became clear that they were the best team in the AFC. So looking like they'll have one of their top weapons back on offense for Sunday. For the Chiefs, 6 players did not practice today. Mike Edwards remains in concussion protocol and was a DNP. Trey Smith is sick. He did not practice. Sky Moore did not practice. He is listed as a DNP with his knee injury. Joe Thuney did not practice. Has that pectoral injury. We know it is a pec strain based on the MRI. Adam Schefter of ESPN reporting earlier today that it is unlikely at this point that Thuney is able to make it to Sunday. Also not practicing, Derek Nottie. He was out with a tricep injury that cost him last week's game. And Isaiah Pacheco did not practice. He was down with what is listed as an ankle and a toe injury, but all of the reporting around Pacheco suggests that he should be good to go by the time Sunday rolls around. And as you'll hear here in a little bit, when we hear from Isaiah Pacheco, he sounded like he was very much in good spirits.
Yeah.
So I would expect Pacheco to be good to go.
I think if he was more hurt than is leading on, he wouldn't have spoke today.
Limited today at practice, Willie Gay with his neck injury. He came out of the game against Buffalo on Sunday early on with that neck injury, expressed optimism himself on Twitter after that game that he would be able to play on Sunday, and at least it's a good step that he was able to practice even in a limited capacity today. Backup quarterback Blaine Gabbert was limited with an oblique injury. That kind of cropped up out of nowhere. L'Jarius Sneed also limited with a calf, but that's been the case for L'Jarius for the last month and change. They've taken it easy for him in practices, and he's been good to go for the games. Listed as full participants today, offensive lineman Prince Tega-Wanogo with a quad injury. You may recall he got hurt week 3, and he's been out since then. He got hurt against the Bears. He's been out since then, but back to a full practice participant today.
They opened his 21-day window.
Right. Him and Sky Moore both have their 21-day windows open. Trent McDuffie, a full participant with an ankle injury. Wanye Morris back practicing in full coming out of concussion protocol. Charles Omenihu has a wrist injury. He practiced in full. Cornerback Joshua Williams has a knee injury. He was a full participant. And 3 wide receivers working through injuries. Rashee Rice, Kadarius Toney, and Marquez Valdez-Scantling listed as having injured their hamstring, hip, and oblique, respectively. But nothing to worry about there. It would appear all of them full participants. It's a much smaller injury report, as you would expect, for the team that has played one fewer playoff game. That is, after all, one of the implied advantages of getting that bye. But that's how things look on Wednesday. Not much optimism for Tooney. Certainly concerned that Nadi could miss a second straight game. Not as much concern for Pacheco, and no real expressed concern for Trey Smith. And good news for Willie Gay, too, that he was back practicing, even though it was limited.
So I did see on Twitter some reports were that he wasn't going to practice because they presumed that because the open media portion, he was not out yet, probably in the training room.
Yeah, there were people that who were there for the open media portion, said they didn't see him, but that, of course, doesn't mean he didn't practice. All right, what's your first headline, Spencer?
My first headline is one that I saw crop up in the beginning part of the show. Very weird. Adam Schefter reported, let me pull up his tweet here to give you kind of more of a timestamp on this. It was kind of out of nowhere. At 2:24 local time, Adam Schefter tweets, the Dolphins and Vic Fangio have mutually agreed to part ways, sources told him, and Jeremy Fowler of ESPN. He now will be the top target for the Eagles to hire as their DC. A deal is expected. Miami is allowing him to leave to be closer to his family in Pennsylvania. Apparently, they had interest in working together in 2023, but the timing didn't work out. This time it will, though. The Eagles did have their end of season press conference, and they did not confirm nor deny anything about Vic Fangio. Just said they have a good list of candidates they are going through for both coordinator positions. But Vic Fangio out as Dolphins DC, but coming soon to the Philadelphia Eagles as DC.
So the Eagles wanted to run the Vic Fangio defense this past season, and they hired Sean Desai, who had worked under Fangio in previous coaching stops. And you saw how well that worked out for everybody involved. Desai first got demoted, then he got fired. So I guess the Eagles have decided it's not the scheme that's the problem. We just don't have the right teacher for it. Let's go if we want to run the Vic Fangio defense, let's not hire a cut rate Vic Fangio. Let's hire the real Vic Fangio. So that is the direction that the Eagles are going. I mean, it's better than promoting Matt Patricia, right? I mean, at this point for the Eagles, they've obviously got to do some different things. But you and I were talking about this off the air. Nick Sirianni has had his chance to play the scapegoat card, if you will. The get out of jail free card for any head coach, any embattled head coach, any head coach on the quote unquote hot seat. You can always play the give me another chance with some different assistants. Let me fire the coordinators first. Sean McDermott got that this past year. We let Leslie Frazier go, and then midway through the season, they fired Ken Dorsey and replaced him with Joe Brady. And now we have Nick Sirianni going into his fourth year, getting a chance to do the same thing, letting go the offensive and defensive coordinator. They fired Brian Johnson yesterday as their offensive coordinator. Obviously, they made a switch midstream with their defensive coordinator and demoted Sean Desai. Then they fire him. So now they're bringing in the actual Vic Fangio to run the Vic Fangio defense. I would suspect they'll have some success. The Fangio scheme works. There's a reason so many teams want to copy it. There's a reason the Eagles wanted to copy it. And maybe they feel like their personnel that they'll have on hand for next year will be better suited to learn from one of the best defensive coordinators of the era.
So can I play a little audio snippet here from Nick Sirianni's press conference?
Yeah, go for it.
So he was asked basically him, and I think it might have been the owner or GM. I'm not sure. They were 30 minutes late to this press conference. I saw on Twitter, by the way. Reporter asked, basically they're going to go, OC's going to run the offense, DC's going to run the defense. That's how they're going for this next year. So reporter said, if the OC will be in charge of the offense and the DC will be in charge of the defense, Nick, what will your role be?
You have to turn on the.
There we go.
What is your role?
So that was the weirdest question ever. I'll be the head coach of this football team. Like the weirdest answer to a question ever.
Other coordinator news in the NFL as we continue our 580 Sports Talk headlines. A little disappointed we didn't get to this with Brendan in the building because I'm sure he would have had a lot to say and none of it would have been nice. You ever seen that meme of the gentleman in a suit standing outside the church and it's an Instagram post. He's standing outside a church, and the caption reads, "I showed up to my biggest hater's funeral today just to make sure he was dead." That would have been Brett today in regards to Joe Barry, who is no longer the defensive coordinator of the Green Bay Packers. There was a press conference 2 days ago where Matt LaFleur was very non-committal about bringing Barry back for another season, and today the axe fell. Barry was the defensive coordinator since 2021. The Packers went from 9th in total defense to 17th in total defense to 17th in total defense in his 3 years at the helm. They were one of the worst rush defenses in the league. And Brendan, our resident Packers fan / franchise owner, was over it. Completely over it.
Well, I've known since about 2016 he is not a good defensive coordinator because he only lasted 2 seasons as the Redskins DC when Jay Gruden hired him.
So yeah, it was the DC in Washington from 15 to 16. He was the DC in Detroit 07-08 and never had a defense rank higher than 28th in total yards. That's incredible.
I remember
it's wild that he got a third chance to coordinate a defense.
That was my thought. I remember when he got hired for this position, and I was like, he's going to be a DC again? How do you give that guy another chance?
Well, shout out to him. He made it 3 years this time, but that was all for Joe Barry. He is out as the Packers defensive coordinator. So if you see Brendan, congratulate him and ask him if he'll show up at the career funeral just to make sure that Joe Barry is no longer the defensive coordinator. Speaking of teams hiring coordinators, Cincinnati Bengals have found their replacement for Brian Callahan. They are promoting their quarterbacks coach, Dan Pitcher, to offensive coordinator. Pitcher's been with the Bengals since 2016 under Marvin Lewis. He was retained under Zach Taylor, promoted to quarterbacks coach back in 2020. Had some other opportunities potentially to be an offensive coordinator elsewhere, but Cincinnati is maintaining some continuity. Again, it's a committee approach with the head coach calling the plays. It's not too dissimilar in Cincinnati to what they've done in Kansas City over the years with Andy Reid. They had a little more authority for Reid than Zach Taylor, but it's a similar sort of setup. So anyway, Cincinnati has found their new offensive coordinators. He's not going to call the plays, but he's going to have the position and presumably a nicer office.
Yeah, somebody who will potentially call plays if he does indeed get hired as the head coach. According to Boomer Esiason on his show on CBS, I believe it's national on CBS Sports Radio and on WFAN and New York CBS Sports Network TV. He says Ben Johnson is the Commanders' number one target. I feel like as a Commanders fan, this has kind of been a presumed take all along, except for the random sprinkling in of whoever else they've interviewed. But it's good to know that they're not going to go with Dan Quinn, because Dan Quinn's been a big rumor over the last couple of days in DC.
I would really love it if somebody else not in Seattle would hire Dan Quinn. Please, somebody else take that bullet for us. Please. Yeah. I'm begging. I'm asking nicely now. Don't make me beg. Please, somebody else hire Dan Quinn. More head coaching news. The coaching carousel continuing to spin. Jeff Darlington of the NFL Network reported earlier today that Mike Vrabel will meet with Atlanta Falcons owner Arthur Blank in Atlanta today, and then will fly to Carolina tomorrow to meet with the Panthers. So Vrabel remains in demand. There are also reports that the Falcons are hoping to have Jim Harbaugh come to town tonight for an interview. Harbaugh, of course, has interviewed with the Chargers twice, and the reporting has been that the Chargers are willing to pay Harbaugh more than what he is currently making at Michigan. There are some reports out of Ann Arbor that Harbaugh now would be offered more money than what the Chargers are able to pay by the University of Michigan. They've been doing that dance the last 3 years. I will believe that Jim Harbaugh is going to take an NFL job when he takes an NFL job. When he is standing behind a podium wearing an NFL team's hat and polo and asking who's got it better than the Los Angeles Chargers, only then will I believe that Jim Harbaugh is going to leave Michigan and take an NFL job.
I am right there with you.
Fool me once, shame on you. But this is the third year in a row that we've done this dance with regards to Jim Harbaugh. And I think you just got to let the process play out at this point.
Yeah.
Any more headlines?
I mean, Reese Hoskins signs a 2-year deal with the Brewers.
Yeah, it's been a slow hot stove, right? Not a lot of action. Still some big time free agents out there in Major League Baseball. The market really slowed once the calendar flipped to the new year. Once the dust settled on some of the bigger names like Shohei Ohtani and some of the Japanese imports. Things have been really slow for kind of that upper middle class of free agents. And one of them found a job yesterday. Reese Hoskins, power hitting first baseman, formerly of the Philadelphia Phillies, signing a 2-year, $34 million contract with the Milwaukee Brewers. Brewers are dying for some power in their lineup, and Hoskins should provide that coming off of a 2023 season that he missed the entirety of due to a torn ACL. Last we saw Hoskins, he was hitting .246 with 30 home runs and a .462 slug in 2022 for the Phillies.
So it appears, I've been reading this all offseason, that Hoskins was a potential target for the Nationals. Clearly the Brewers were going to outpay with the Nationals.
Yeah, there was a lot of talk about the Cubs too. Would have made some sense for them. But as a, first baseman only at this stage, like he's not a guy, like I like his bat better than I like Hunter Renfroe's. That's the move the Royals made. Royals signed Renfroe to a 1-year deal with a team option for a second. Like in a vacuum, bat for bat, I certainly think Hoskins is a better hitter, but Hoskins can't play the outfield. Renfroe's not a great outfielder, but he's got a terrific arm. And so you've got a little bit more versatility with Renfroe and might be in the end similar hitters. Like we don't know what it's going to look like for Hoskins coming off of a year lost to injury, but similar power potential. And if you're looking for somebody to play the outfield, Hoskins has tried that. It didn't go real well for him when he tried that. That'll do it then for our 580 Sports Talk headlines on this Wednesday, January 24th. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to hear from more members of the Kansas City Chiefs who spoke to the media on Championship Week Wednesday. That's coming up here on 580 WIBW.
Retiring soon? How much money do you need to live comfortably? Retirement Planners of America is here for you. Would you like to have financial peace of mind? Here's how. Step 1, find out the amount of money you'll need to retire. Step 2, have a plan to get there. Step 3, make sure that plan can take advantage of market gains but protect you from market losses. Discover how to do all three with a free consultation at 800-508-6108. That's 800-508-6108.
All investments involve risk, including losses. Past performance does not guarantee future results.
Imagine having all the money you need for retirement, all the income, every month, guaranteed. That's Secure Future Investor, an indexed annuity tied to growth in the stock market, but without any risk of loss ever. It's guaranteed money for life.
Sunday in Baltimore is it still M&T Bank Stadium? You're the Easterner.
Yes, it is. Good old M&T Bank.
Is that a prominent East Coast chain, or is it just a Baltimore thing?
I believe it's just a it's kind of, I think there's more in that region of Maryland. There is one near where I live, but it's not as big.
All right. M&T Bank Stadium, the site of this year's AFC Championship game, as the Kansas City Chiefs will take on the Baltimore Ravens. Several Chiefs players spoke to the media earlier today. We're going to bring you a couple of those. We're going to start by hearing from a gentleman who did not practice today. And I'll admit, like many of you, I'm sure, when I saw this player pop up as a did not participate on the practice report, I grew briefly concerned because you'd certainly much rather have a healthy Isaiah Pacheco than a not healthy Pacheco going into this AFC Championship game. But not to worry. Everybody seems optimistic about Pacheco's availability, including Pacheco himself. Here's what he had to say to the press earlier today.
A lot of people have said your running style, and some people said that you bite the grass, and there's been a lot of
what?
Council said that. Which one have you seen that you say, hey, yeah, I think you're right on with that running style?
I'll say the funniest one that I thought was they said I run like I bite people. Like I ain't no zombie. Like that was crazy. Like so that was one of the funniest ones. You said I run like I bite the ground, bite the grass. That's crazy. So it's a great opinion, I guess, to have on the way I run. For me, it's just being determined and understanding that I have a goal to achieve and we want to get the job done.
Are you angry when you're out there running?
Absolutely. Just through everything, that's been in front of you, understanding the week has been a long process of the week and, just being prepared, understanding the scheme and willing to do whatever you got to do to get the job done is leaving it all out there in the field with no regrets.
Isaiah, it sounds like they're backing off you today. Just how are you feeling health-wise? You think it'd be okay to go on Sunday?
Yeah, absolutely. Working with the training room, just doing a great job in there. Just blessed to be a part of it and just continue to get better every day.
What's the last, the 2-minute situation where you get first down? You kind of take me through your mindset and just how much you appreciate it.
Yes, just knowing that situation is extremely important. You only get those situations in practice, and when you rep it, when it comes in the game and it happens, it's like secondhand nature. And for us, just understanding the scheme and understanding we did that in practice before. That's the mindset of me getting the first down and having the O-line finish on that play.
Is there certain enjoyment in those situations, even before the start game?
Yeah, definitely. There's a big enjoyment. You win the game right there. It's all said and done. You don't have to send the defense back out there to get a punt or just have them back out there. It eliminates that part of the game and is a big win for us.
You talk about the end of the game. I'm just asking you about, I think you were mic'd up and they showed a clip where you were telling Trav, all right, big bro, I got you. How much do you, or I think it was Patrick, how much do you look to those guys in game or just in different situations?
I look to them in every game. They've been in the situation. They've been here. They've done that. They know this game, man. For me, I've been here 1 year and I've been a part of it. It's been a long 1 year. So for me, understanding that I've been in those shoes, been there, just getting that second opinion from those guys, hearing them is going to keep me going even more.
You're talking about senior. There's a lot of talk. Sorry. A lot of talk in the Bengals game about maybe the offense getting simplified a little bit, or you guys have really seemed to have kind of picked it up a notch since then. What kind of changed, and how did it make it easier for you?
I'll say the intensity changed. It's the grit. You could see the guys, the eyes in the huddle, and the way they bite their mouthpieces down from the start of practice. When it's group install, it's not just group install. It's the beginning of practice, beginning of the game. That's the mindset we had to have because when it's set and it's all said and done, when the ball snap, it's over.
A lot of people have been talking about the way you guys were treated in Buffalo by the fans. Can you talk about them throwing snowballs and that fire you guys up?
Now we appreciate them throwing snowballs. That was fun. I got some dodging skills off of that. It's cool though. It comes with the game. When you love competing in that environment, you gotta love that. And going there with one goal and coming out with the goal that you went there with, it feels amazing.
Have you made strides as a pass protection in the last couple of years, and what other areas do you think you got best in?
Absolutely. Understanding the scheme, being in that classroom, taking notes daily, day by day, and being the guy that's going to be the last defense.
How much has Jarek helped you with that? Because he's always kind of been a legendary pass.
Yes, he's been in the room still to this day, and you guys might not see him out as much on the field, but he's still in the building, still coming in, showing support, and he's with us through it all.
What about last year's postseason run sort of better informed you about how to manage your body over the course of the season? Hoping to do it again.
Like I said, it's the longest season last year of my career. So understanding now it's the second year. There was no offseason for me last year. Had surgery. So it's been an ongoing work. So for me to understand that, got the routine down pat and just continue to listen to the leaders, take care of my body, and understand the goal we have.
You added to the routine going from year 1 to year 2 to stay as healthy as possible.
Absolutely. Just staying longer in the building, being one of the last guys to lead the building.
Isaiah, I can't quite see the shirt. Is that you on the shirt? Can you sell those? Or what's the deal there?
One of my friends made it. It's 10. We're gonna rep it.
Like you guys went to. You talked about going to Buffalo, hostile environment, going to another spot in Baltimore. How much do you guys embrace that building, bro?
It's important to us, man. It means so much when you have to go in another hostile environment with just a 53-man roster. Understanding is y'all against the city, and when you come out successful, it means a lot and shows how hard we've been working.
Patrick mentioned just about turning the attention on Monday to this next week. Does he relay that message to you guys? Is he vocal about it?
Yeah, absolutely. That message relayed from the end of that game on last week, which was Sunday. Pat already said that week's over. Now, Coach Reid just said it as well. Celebrate, but not too hard. It's time to get to work.
That's Isaiah Pacheco, again, speaking with the media earlier today. It's funny, a lot of professional athletes, younger professional athletes, they, like us, are very online. Like, they have other things to do that preclude them from being as online as me or you or Brendan. But there are some athletes who are really online and engage in some posting, some at times some questionable posting behaviors. There's some name searching that happens. The next guy we're going to hear from has been guilty of that. But you could tell Isaiah Pacheco not super online, because otherwise he would have heard all the memes after the Miami game. He would have seen the Pacheco run like he bite people tweet before that was mentioned to him earlier today. He was genuinely, I think, a little put off by that. He said, "I'm not a zombie. I don't bite anyone." That was pretty funny to me to hear him react to that. Anyway, that was Isaiah Pacheco earlier today. Speaking of Chiefs players who are very online, sometimes to their detriment, Chris Jones also spoke to the media today. He didn't speak long, but let's hear from big number 95 in the middle of that Chiefs defense. Oh, that's the wrong button. Let's try that again. Chris Jones.
I know it's not your side of the ball, but I wonder if over the years you've developed an appreciation for what Patrick and Travis can do together.
Absolutely not. No, I'm just playing with you. I think it's more so a collective effort. Offense over the years I've been here, which is 8 years, has been remarkable. Have saved us a lot of games, have won us a lot of games. And it's defense as well. Sometimes defense gets overlooked because of how outstanding our offense has been over the years. But if you take it down in the playoff the last 4 to 5 years, I think defense has played a significant part in it. So as well as Patrick has been, you got to give kudos to the defense and Spags.
Let's go to Sterling.
Chris, how challenging is Lamar Jackson? You faced him before. What do you have to be mindful of in trying to?
He's an MVP caliber quarterback. He has a good chance of winning MVP this year. That just shows you how dynamic as a player he is. And that defense is one of the best defense in the league. I think overall as a team, they're one of the best teams in the league. They've showed that throughout the year on how competitive they are against the better teams in the league. Look at a team like San Fran, look at a team what they did to Miami, and they've been showing that type of dominance throughout this year. So it's going to be tough. It's a challenge, but I'm excited for it.
Chris, how much have you really kind of relished in the mental side of your approach up front in terms of playing games with offensive linemen, movement, setting things up, and where are you now compared to maybe a couple of years ago in terms of using that?
I think it's a week in thing. every game has this challenges, his mental challenges that you have to face, and also the physical aspect. You got the finesse teams, you got the downhill running teams, and then you got the Baltimore Ravens, who can do a little bit of both. They can run the ball, they can pass the ball. So they got weapons on the outside, but they also got a dominant offensive line who can just run the ball. So I think it's a great challenge ahead of us. I think we'll watch a little more film and see what we can do.
Chris, what's just the appreciation level for the fact that you've been in this game here 6 straight years?
I think it's just goes to show the dedication with the guys in this organization from top to bottom, whether it's the coaches, whether it's the players. I don't think individuals can get you this far in this league. It takes a team collective effort, and I think it's a lot of dedication, a lot of support, and a lot of unselfishness amongst that, and a lot of commitment from guys, from the practice squad guys, from your role players to your leaders, and with that, a little luck. And
so that is what Chris Jones had to say earlier today. You hear the wisdom of all of the playoff runs that Chris Jones has been a part of over time. He knows what it takes and acknowledges that, sometimes you need a little luck. Sometimes you need Joseph Asai to be a split second late to hit Patrick Mahomes along the sideline. Sometimes you need to come back from 24-0 down. Like there's sometimes stuff has to happen, has to break for you in order for your team to advance. And what will it be that has to break right for the Chiefs on Sunday in Baltimore? That is what remains to be seen. We're going to take another break here on 580 Sports Talk. On the other side, we got some Big 12 basketball coming your way tonight with Iowa State taking on Kansas State. Some final thoughts on that, some other things as we round third and head for home in this edition of 580 Sports Talk.
To some, it's a dirty 4-letter word, hemp. CBD American Shaman reminds you there's no reason to be afraid of hemp. Before it was the wheat state, Kansas' #1 crop was hemp. The benefits of CBD, or cannabidiol, extracted from hemp have been known to man for more than 3,500 years. In fact, the feather on the sign at CBD American Shaman is a nod to those indigenous people of America. CBD from hemp, made by nature, enhanced by science, with American Shaman's patented nanotechnology. Better CBD, better value. Curious? Talk to Eric and Lindsay and learn more about the benefits of hemp-derived CBD at CBD American Shaman of Topeka, Wanamaker. A little bit west of 29th and Wanamaker, next to Happy Bassett.
CBD American Shaman. Life is better with the feather.
When we say CDs, you think of
boy bands,
compact disc.
probably the Now CDs. Now that's what I call music.
You may know how to work a CD player, but when was the last time you had a CD working for you? That's right, a certificate of deposit. An interest-earning CD is a great way to put your extra dollars to work. Good news, rates are heating up at Central National Bank on these safe and predictable investments, which means more money for future you for whatever. To open a certificate of deposit, simply stop by your local branch and speak to one of Central's personal bankers. You could plug in an old CD to hear hairband music, or you can plug in a new CD from Central and hear ka-ching.
Central National Bank. Money for life.
Member FDIC, money for whatever since 1884.
WIBW, Topeka.
Welcome back to 580 Sports Talk. We're on the YouTube stream. We never left. Brendan runs that usually when he's here, and sometimes I forget I got to take up the mantle. So, yeah, you were just looking at us for the last couple of minutes if you were on YouTube.
If you were looking, too, you saw me get kind of frantic, and you saw me my mouth moving.
If
the
you
talk
were
back button.
Yeah, if you were a lip reader, you know exactly what we're going to talk about here in this segment. That would be awfully impressive. Breaking news from all of the major NFL insiders. Adam Schefter, I believe, was first.
Yeah.
It is Jim Harbaugh to the Los Angeles Chargers. Everybody with NFL Network has confirmed this. He is in town. He is not expected to leave town, is how Ian Rappaport puts it in his tweet. Jim Harbaugh back in the NFL, and this reopens the college football coaching carousel as well. So this is hugely impactful in both professional and college football. I want to get your thoughts first. My relationship to Jim Harbaugh is complicated, not like in a personal sense, just in terms of a consumer of football sense. So your thoughts first on Jim Harbaugh to the Los Angeles Chargers. How do you think that works out?
I feel like the Chargers now have a legitimate coach. But again, he's done this, dipped his toes in the NFL before. He did go back to college. We'll see what he can do this time around. I think leaving college at this point for the sake of his team, and I guess everything that happened this last season, I guess, I saw it coming. Though I never thought it was actually going to happen. I was like, immediately when the Connor Stallion stuff came out, and then it was already suspended before taking a hamburger or whatever before.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, does this push Harbaugh to the NFL? I was back in September, October. And here we are in January, and he accepts a head coaching job. 89-25 at Michigan, 40-3 over the last 3 seasons, 3 Big 12 titles, AP Coach of the Year, 21, and then the 2023 national champions.
Tremendous run at Michigan, and there were no more worlds to conquer, if I may get poetic a little bit, with regards to Jim Harbaugh at Michigan. There was nothing else for him to accomplish there. He did exactly what Michigan hired him to do. Like, they could not have they would have, I'm sure, liked for it to have happened a little faster, but Michigan football was in dire straits after Lloyd Carr retired. They didn't give Rich Rodriguez a fair shake and a fair opportunity. They hired Brady Hoke, an all-time dunce who had no business ever running a Power 5 program, and they had fallen further and further behind, not just Ohio State. It was one thing they were getting walloped by Ohio State every year. And the only year they beat Ohio State was the year between Tressel and Meyer when Luke Fickell was the interim, and they finished 6-6. That was the only time Michigan had beaten Ohio State for like a decade and a half. And so they bring in Harbaugh to not just beat Ohio State, but to get Michigan football back to what Michigan football expects itself to be, which is a little ironic because they'd only won half of a national championship since World War II. Like, the iconic Bo Schembechler never won or even shared a national championship, but they did not expect to be 3rd or 4th rate in their own league. It's one thing to lose to Ohio State. When they started losing to Michigan State, that was where it got to be, we need to right this ship. So Jim Harbaugh came in, the son of Michigan, great player at the university, won a Big Ten championship, playing for Bo, understood everything that's important about being a quote-unquote Michigan man, and he went and did the job. And again, took a little longer than I think most people thought. 2020 is the fakest sports year of all time.
Yeah.
None of that stuff, arguably, none of it should have ever even happened. But it's the fakest sports year of all time. And one thing that happened in that extremely fake and misleading college football season, along with Indiana being good and Iowa State going to a New Year's Six game and all these other things, Colorado playing in the Alamo Bowl, among the fake things that happened that year was Michigan went 2-4 and didn't even play Ohio State that year. And I think in retrospect, we can look at that and say, yeah, they could blame COVID, but they chickened out of that game. They didn't want no part of that game that year. It was gonna be bad. And if they had played Ohio State and lost, that probably would have been it. It would have fired Jim Harbaugh. Instead, they stood the course. Jim Harbaugh showed that he was a little bit malleable, that he could hire some younger assistants and maybe change his mind in some ways about how football is meant to be played. And here they are 3 years later. They've beaten Ohio State 3 straight times. They've won the Big Ten 3 straight times. They've won a national championship. There's nothing more you can do as a college football coach. Yeah. You've done it. You've restored order. You've stamped the flipping of that rivalry, that historic rivalry. You own the conference, and you're the national champions. And showing that malleability over time is the thing that I think will help Harbaugh as a head coach in the NFL this second time around.
How about this? Chargers scheduled to play Ravens next season in LA.
Oh, we get the Brother Bowl.
We
do
get the Jim and John Harbaugh Bowl. I think that happened on Thanksgiving in like 20, whenever he was back in the league. I feel like that happened once.
Yeah, that'll be on some primetime. That'll be a primetime game.
Oh yeah,
can promise you that. Already some trash talk happening in the YouTube comments. Mark says Jim Harbaugh better look forward to losing to the Chiefs twice a year. I mean, it kind of has been the pattern. I hated Jim Harbaugh as the 49ers head coach. And as a Seahawks fan, I think I would have hated whoever was the 49ers head coach, but I especially hated Jim Harbaugh as the head coach. And I so disliked him that I it's going to be hard for me. It was kind of hard for me to see him in a new light when he went over to Michigan, which when I was a kid, that was my favorite college football program. I haven't closely followed Michigan football for the better part of a decade and a half. So I can't call myself a fan anymore, but I was. And so when they hired him and they won the national championship, that was kind of cool. It was cool to see the program that I liked when I was a kid win a national championship. So that's what I mean when I say my feelings about Jim Harbaugh are a little bit complicated. But there he is back in the NFL. Thought this made all the sense in the world, and credit the Chargers here for doing the thing that we said that they wouldn't do, or a lot of people didn't believe they would do because they hadn't done it. Open up the checkbook. We don't have financial details yet, but we can assume that it costs them a lot of money.
Yeah, Rappaport said he left money on the table, obviously, with Michigan. He would have been the highest paid college football coach.
Yes, I know Michigan was willing to do that, but players' cheeseburgers or practice times, or he doesn't ever have to think about the name Connor Stallions ever again, and he can just go coach football.
Unless he decides to hire him to his
Maybe he will.
Staff.
Maybe Connor Stallions get back in the game, baby. Meanwhile, how this affects college football, I'm not sure it affects it much. It sure feels like Michigan will promote Sharon Moore.
Yeah.
I think that, and at this stage in the coaching carousel, that's probably the move for Michigan, is to just stay with stability and hire the guy who was the game day head coach when you beat Ohio State this year. 1-0 against Ohio State. That's a pretty good place to start. I think it'll probably be Sharon Moore that gets that job. And but hey, Pete Thamel, don't you worry, K-State fans. Pete Thamel has already mentioned Chris Kleiman and Lance Leipold. So KU fans, you're in on this too. It's every story. Every coaching vacancy from now to the end of time, you're going to see two names in the story. You're going to see Lance Leipold and you're going to see Chris Kleiman. It's just going to happen. Until and unless one of those two guys isn't at KU or K-State anymore, they're going to be connected with every good opening. That's how good a coach you have in Lawrence. That's how good a coach you have in Manhattan.
I mean, I feel like they already knew this was probably coming, so they've already have a list of names when you're Michigan.
Yeah, and
if you're going to interview outside candidates, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure they have a plan B, and they'll act pretty quickly here. I would honestly, today's Wednesday. I wouldn't be surprised if Sharon Moore's the head coach by Friday.
Yeah,
I just call him in, hammer out the details, make it happen. Like, he's not going to make as much as Jim Harbaugh. What they got to do is make sure, if they can, keep Jesse Minter, which I'm not sure that they will be able to do. Texas from 316 points out, I don't know if you knew this, Sharon Moore is a Kansan.
Did not know that.
Played his high school ball at Derby and played at Butler Community College. That was new information to me until about halfway through this past season. I did not know that either. So thank you for pointing that out to our listeners who might not have made that connection. Texter from the 316. One final break we got to take. We'll come back with a final word after this.
If you're
edition of 580 Sports Talk. We got about a minute and a half here. So, Spencer, you gave the ball first.
All right. Well, timely here. I hope just for the sake of Herbert, because I like him as a quarterback, I think he can be a good one. I hope the Chargers somehow find a way to actually be decent under him, and maybe they get a good GM, but they got a terrible salary cap situation. Also looking forward to watching K-State tonight, getting used to seeing them play.
K-State, Iowa State coming up tonight. My final word is about that one. I think I like the Cats to cover the 8-point spread we're seeing in some places, 7.5 in some other places. I like them to cover that spread. And if Taman Lipsey can't go for the Cyclones tonight, don't be surprised if the Cats walk out of Ames with a win. But that is a hard place to win. Either way, we're going to learn something about K-State starting tonight as their Big 12 schedule gets tougher and tougher from here. That's going to do it for 580 Sports Talk on this Wednesday. Brendan Dworzinski's got the Washburn Coaches Show on Classic Country 106.9 coming up here at the bottom of the hour, and K-State, or the top of the 6 o'clock hour, K-State basketball, 7 o'clock pregame, 8 o'clock tip-off. We'll be back from 2 to 5 tomorrow before the Capital City Classic. For Brendan Dworzinski and Spencer Dupuis, I'm Dan Lucero saying good night. This has been 580 Sports Talk.
Hey, to social engineering